I entertain a motion for approval of the agenda.
Motion to approve?
Second.
All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? This time, I would like to ask for nominations for chairman of the school board. As you know, a second is not required.
I'd like to nominate Holly Hazard for chairman of the school board.
Second.
Are there any other nominations? Hearing none. Those in favor of Holly Hazard as chairman, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes unanimously. I congratulate Ms. Hazard as the new chair of the Stafford County School Board. And I have to relinquish my gavel, right?
There you go, my dear.
Thank you. This needs to be signed. Yep. Got it. At this time, continuing with 104, at this time, I'd like to ask for nominations for vice chairman of the school board. As you know, a second is not required.
Madam Chair, I'd like to nominate Miss Irene Egan for vice chairman of the school board.
Although not required, I'd like to second that.
Are there any other nominations? If not, I would like us, do I hear a motion to, in favor of Irene Egan as vice chair? Please say aye. Any opposed? Okay, congratulations, Ms. Egan, as you approved unanimously. Do it next week with the computers.
You guys have to switch right now, I think. I think that's the rules.
No, then we got our computers figured.
But my computer get all messed up if I do
That's right, we got our computers
They
messed
can
up.
pass notes.
That's right. If the board would indulge me for a moment before we move on to our adopting of administrative authorizations, I would like to personally thank Ms. Kidby for her last 2 years of service on the school board, and this is something
Oh, my goodness.
for you, for your wonderful service for 2 years for us.
Sweetheart.
Well, the school board.
Thanks.
And now we would like you to open it. We're
Oh,
one of
really?
those- Yeah. You've been with your grandkids and you would not let yourself open a present?
Oh, look at How fun. Thank you very much.
As some of you may know, Ms. Kidby now has how many grandchildren?
12.
12 grandchildren, so we thought that a
Oh,
gavel
my
was
God.
absolutely in order for Ms. Kidby to use at home.
And if anybody wants to see pictures of the new grandbaby, just let me know when I leave.
Okay, moving on to agenda item. Yes.
Madam Chair?
Oh, yes, I know what the most important thing, one of the most important things we need to do is, we also have
job.
to appoint our clerk and deputy clerk. The superintendent has recommended Roberta Euring as clerk of the board. Do I have a motion to approve the superintendent's recommendation?
Motion to approve?
Second.
I think there'll be lots of seconds. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Roberta, very much for staying with us and moving forward. So, excuse me. So now we'll move on to section, agenda item 1.05, adopting the administrative authorizations for 2016. Do I have a motion to approve?
Move to approve 1.05, adoption administrative authorization.
Is there a second?
Second?
It has been moved and seconded for adoption of the administrative authorizations for 2016. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next item on the agenda, section 1.06, to appoint members to committees. Many of you did receive something from our clerk regarding the openings. I just would like to, before we go through those, to just name them so everybody has them in the forefront of their mind. First, the Stafford Education Foundation. Next, the Commonwealth Governors School Board, to serve on that board. The Parks and Recreation Commission. The School Board Superintendent's Joint Private Day School. The school board advisory committees, we have one vacancy. The standing committees, which will be the joint school working committee, and we have an opening on the legislative committee. Just for all those here tonight, the budget committee is not done at this time because normally it is done in the summertime so that the committee can remain throughout the budget process. So I thought we would just start at the beginning. The Stafford Education Foundation chairman, it tends to be the chairman and another member. I would be interested in serving in that, if that's okay for the board. My thought is we would go through each one of these and then vote the slate if we have no disputes. That would be easiest. I would like to ask Ms. Kidby, would you consider being an alternate to that, just in
Sure,
case,
you
since you
bet.
have served in the past? I know no one is not required, but I think it's always good to have backup, just in case. Commonwealth Governor's School, currently Mr. McCosker served, and Ms. Egan was the alternate last year. Mr. McCosker, or who has some
I would like to
interest?
serve again if you'll have me. I understand if someone else wants to serve, but
Is there anyone else who would like to serve in that way? And who, or is there someone who would also like to serve as an alternate? in that? Any
You
alternates?
can keep me
Keep
on as
me?
alternate if you want. He's been such a good member. He's not had to use me at all.
thank
Okay.
you, Ms. Egan.
It's important with Commonwealth Governor's School that we have a board member that has a strong interest in the school, and I think Mr. McCosker fits that bill really well.
All right, so we will have Mr. McCosker down as our primary and Ms. Egan as alternate. Parks and Rec Commission, I know Mr. Hirons has served in the past and Mr. McCosker was alternate. I wanted to at least see if you had the interest or if that was
No,
something.
I have served on this both here and on the Planning Commission. I have not been able to attend a lot of the meetings, mostly because they're Thursday nights, same nights as our Finance and Budget Committee meetings often. And did we ever make a request to the Board of Supervisors to talk about the idea of making this a voting position again? It's, the excitement of the Parks and Rec Commission as a non-voting member. There's not a lot of input or output that we have, except for maybe once or twice a year when we start talking about shared services or some school use with parks, et cetera.
And I believe the school board also, the Planning Commission also had that same request if they had somebody. I think we should reiterate that. I know that it was brought forward before, and I think we should. Is there someone who would be willing? It tends to be the third Thursday of the month, Mr. Hirons, if I recall.
That's when our FAB meeting was?
That's what it was. So if there is somebody who has that availability that evening, I would hate to not have somebody serving in that role as we further define that position. I have served in the past myself. Is there anyone who has that?
I'll do it.
Well, thank you, Ms. Fallon. Is there anyone interested in serving as an alternate? Okay, right now, we will just go without an alternate and move forward. The Private Day School Study Committee, Ms. Egan served last year. I was an alternate. Any interest, or anybody else who has an interest in this committee?
Madam Chair, I do have an interest, and I would like to serve on it. And depending on if Ms. Egan would like to serve, whichever. Oh, there's actually two.
There's two
regular
slots.
There should be
Yeah,
two
so
slots.
Yeah,
So-
that would actually be helpful to me, given my new schedule, so, and I can get you up to speed in an instant.
That sounds great. So Mr. Hirons and Ms. Egan as our school board members to the Private Day School. Right now, we have one opening on our advisory committees, as we normally fill those in the summer before school starts, is on the technology one. I wanted to first offer if Ms. Fallon would like to do that, to have one of the advisory committees, unless somebody would really like to have that one. You can swap. Okay? Is that-
Yeah, if we could. Well, I just asked if she had an
Yeah.
interest in the Fine Arts Committee. I should have asked beforehand. But if I could be slotted for technology and Ms. Fallon as
Fine Arts.
which is a awesome committee, which I truly enjoyed being a part of.
Do you play as
It-
well? So we will put on Fine and Performing Arts, Ms. Fallon, and Technology for Mr. Hirons. And we'll make sure that the heads of those committees understand that swap. Okay, the next one is the dubbed 3-on-3 Standing Committee, which is jointly with the Board of Supervisors. They elected their members last Friday. Right now, we have Ms. Healy, a vacancy, and Mr. Hiron served in 2015, and Ms. Egan was the alternate. I will start with who has some interest in this committee.
I served on it for 1 year, and I enjoyed it. I would like to try it again.
Okay, Ms. Egan?
And I'd like to retain my slot on it. Of course, we should ask, who are the members of the Board of Supervisors that are appointed?
Mr. Cavalier,
Ms.
Mr.
Sellers.
Snellings, and Ms. Sellers, sorry.
So,
Any
yeah,
interest?
I'd like to do it. That's the 3-on-3?
Mhm.
Yeah, I'd like to be the member of the 3-on-3 this year, I think.
Ms. Healy, would you?
Ms. Hazard, I've been on this one. If I'm not on this one, I'd like to be on the FABC. So either one or the other would be fine with me. I think it's good if we could spread them both between, the various members of the,
Yeah,
The
I
bo-
agree.
the
That's
board.
why I didn't intend to put
Right.
my hat in this year for the FABC, so I knew there was
Excuse me.
some work going on, and that's a July, I think that's a July,
Yeah, the FAB season,
the
July.
July, but
yeah.
I think, yeah, I agree.
You currently, Mr. McCosker, I believe, are the alternate for FAB
I'm
C.
still the alternate, and I think Mr. Hirons, was it July 1 we're supposed to switch on that? We offset it for the budget schedule, so,
Right.
yeah.
Would, Ms. Healy, would you like to take that alternate position, or would you like to have, let's see, because it would be myself, Mr. Hirons, and Ms. Kidby are on the FAB C at this time. Let's see. What would,
perhaps Mr. Hirons would agree to switch on July 1st.
Or-
That's a possibility.
or somebody
not
may
6
go
months
off.
from now.
Right, I think somebody will go off that committee then, but would you like to be the alternate for Mr. McCosker at this time to receive the materials, or?
It really doesn't matter. I just think these are two very important committees of this board, and since there's 7 members, and I know Ms. Fallon's probably going to be going to all the meetings to, get up to speed on it. So with 6 other members, I think if we had, each of us were on one of the 2 committees, I think that would be an equitable distribution
Yes.
of the responsibilities.
All right. So right now, Ms. Egan, Mr. Hirons, and Mr. McCosker?
Well, then I'm not on either one as a member right now, then.
Would you like to
it-
stay on the 3-on-3?
3 and 3?
Well, I'd like to be on one or the other.
Right.
As a standing member, and, I don't mind being an alternate, but technically, the alternates have no participation in the meeting. I mean, you have to sit there and bite your tongue almost, which is really hard for somebody like me. So I have no objection to being an alternate, but I would like to be a member on one or the other.
Okay.
And I'd certainly be willing to switch on July 1st, or, I don't know if Mr. Hirons, would be willing to switch now, or,
I
whatever.
don't necessarily want to make the commitment, but I think we probably need to look at the bylaws, because I've been on since I started my term on the school board. I forget there is a time limit, I think, or how many terms.
Because I have to rotate off.
Yeah,
think it's
so
2
it
years,
may,
so he may
it may
have
be
to
by
go
default
off.
come
Yeah.
July
Both of us
anyway.
will.
Yeah, he may have to go off.
Both of us will.
But I would be happy to give her my alternate spot for now, and then she could, of course, slide in a couple of months. It's not a problem.
Either way. Are we comfortable with that for now? I want to make sure, though, that you feel
So
comfortable.
does that mean I'm off the 3-on-3 now? I'm not on either one, really, then? I mean, if that's the will of the board, that's fine, because the board actually votes on these
I know.
appointments. I just,
That's why I'm trying to see if there is any other way to do it with the split between the
Why
6
don't you
months.
go ahead and take the 3-on-3, and then I'll just stand in as an alternate. This way you have a,
Yeah, committee.
are you on one of them, though? Then you're not on one
If-
either.
If no, I still have legislative,
So-
if nobody else
Oh,
wants it,
okay.
so.
Right. When you'll probably be heading that up. So how about we have Ms. Healy there, like I said, come July?
Yeah,
we
and
can
if
do
you
some.
want to switch me on July, that's fine with me.
We could do that because depending on how the work of the 3-on-3, we'll figure out a way to
fine with
maybe coincide those.
Yep.
Okay, so Ms. Healy, Mr. Hirons, and Mr. McCosker, with Ms. Egan serving as alternate. Continue? Okay.
On the 3-on-3.
On the 3-on-3, excuse me.
Okay.
Legislative Committee, right now, Mr. McCosker and Ms. Egan are current members, and there is a vacancy. I believe that Ms. Fallon has interest,
Yes.
had expressed an interest. Is there anyone else? Because
Yeah, I would be happy to give that up.
working with such nice people.
I know you worked your
I mean,
tail off.
I enjoy working with you folks, but
I love Wayne.
Is there anyone else who would like to?
Dwayne, there's an open spot, so you don't have to leave me
oh,
so
I don't
soon.
have to leave. No, whatever y'all want me to do.
Is there anyone else who has an interest in serving on the Legislative Committee? Let me ask that. Okay, so right now, we will keep it then as Ms. Egan, Mr. McCosker, and Ms. Fallon. The Head Start Policy Council, I believe that,
Ms. Hazard, I think we only had 2 members on that committee.
no, it was 3. When we
we change
voted
it?
it,
Yeah,
we did
Dana
vote.
requested.
We changed it, oh.
Yeah.
Dana
we had
requested
3.
a
Oh, my
3,
goodness.
yeah.
So we
It
have,
makes it
do you
more
have 3 now?
complicated,
Mm-hmm.
just set
We
meetings.
were
Noticing them anyway.
Anyway,
so.
No. No, thank you.
this is the horse trade night. So for right now, we will keep those 3. The Head Start Policy Council, I know, Mr. Hirons, you had said that at this time it was, you needed to step down from that.
Yeah,
Is
because
that-
of the commitment of that committee,
Mm-hmm.
midday and fairly intense meetings, I would prefer not to stay on that committee.
I can take that on as long as I have a alternate who would maybe also be available during the day, just in case.
I'd be willing to do that.
Okay, with Ms. Fallon as the alternate. Now, does everybody feel comfortable with that as the slate of candidates? I think that we could make the motion that way as opposed to individually nominating and taking a lot of time. Is that the will of the board? All right. Do I have a motion concerning our appointments to committees?
Madam Chair, motion to approve 1.06, the appointed members of the committees as stated.
Do I have a second? All right, we have, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, moving on to 1.07, approving the 2016 school board meeting dates, times, and special activities.
Motion to approve 1.07?
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion about any of the meeting dates? I would note about our November meeting. Has everybody realized that has been moved from our standard Tuesday night to a Wednesday night because that is election night? That is, we thought that was best to go ahead and notice it and have it done that way. I just wanted to bring that to all board members' attention, is that that's the only major change. Okay? Hearing no more discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, moving on to section 1.08, approve the Virginia School Boards Association Code of Conduct.
Motion to approve 1.08?
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, all those, the discussion, I felt like it is important before our discussion, I hope that everybody has read what we have, what we agreed to. I do think it's important as we begin our year to make sure that we have looked this over and read this document. We will all be signing it this evening. And I just ask that all of us, after we retain it, I will ask the clerk to make sure that we all have a copy of that for us moving forward. Any further discussion about the code of conduct?
Madam Chair, I'd also like to suggest that we have this posted on our website somewhere, so it's accessible to everyone.
Yes, I think that's a great suggestion. All right, hearing no more discussion, all those in favor of us approving and signing Section 1.08, the Virginia School Board Association's Code of Conduct, please say aye.
Aye?
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. At the end, when we are getting our picture taken, we'll make sure everybody has a signature. We can do that at that point. Moving on to our special presentation this evening, 2.01, the presentation of the superintendent's FY 2017 recommended budget. So I will invite Dr. Benson to the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's my pleasure to present the superintendent's funding request for the 2016-17 school year this evening. And I appreciate the opportunity to do it as a staff presentation early in the meeting. This is, something I think is very important, not only to our board, but our community as a whole. And it gives us an opportunity to have this out in front of a larger audience. This is early for us to bring this kind of information. We finished the majority of the work by about 4 o'clock this afternoon. So we're going to spend the next couple of days putting the books together. We'll get the books and post all of the detailed information by the end of the week. The biggest pieces, though, the parts that respond to what the board identified as goals for this budget process, will be addressed this evening. It's a lot of information, and we're going to have some time in the next 4 to 6 weeks where we are going through that, trying to figure out what of this you might want to change, move differently, or if there are other areas that you might want to try to address. The board had quite the list of goals for us to try and address in this upcoming budget, and I think we're going to make some progress in a lot of areas. We're going to face some challenges in some others. So first of all, I would be remiss to not revisit what we did last year, because we did accomplish some things as a part of the last year's budget. We matched state salary increases for all employees. I want to point out that when the state says they're going to give a raise for folks, they do their share of the SOQ positions, and that we have to match, and then we have to provide the full amount for every staff member who's not in their list of positions. So that presents some challenge for us, and we were able to do that last year. We adopted a market-based compensation model for teachers, establishing the median of the market as a target, and we were able to put some money in there to the point where we improved teacher starting pay to $40,000 for the first time ever. We were also able to pay new teachers for participating in the New Teacher Institute. We had 233 teachers that were brand new to our schools that realized $500 for their participation in that institute, meaning that they got a check before the first regular payroll to help them with the transition to our community. We funded a new financial management human resources system, which is on track and on budget for deployment in July. Sorry, I was hitting some extra keys there. Let me back up. And then during the course of this budget year, we added an additional 18 of 20 approved teachers and 25 of 25 approved paraprofessionals in order to provide some relief for class size in the division. And we're continuing to support those positions moving forward in this next year's budget, which is an important thing for us to note. So as part of our current strategic plan, we talk about being an innovative learning organization. That means we try to look at things differently. We learn from things that perhaps didn't go as well as we might hope that they have gone, and we work to transform ourselves moving forward. And I think that's representative in the manner in which we have put together this funding request. So what's different about the budget development? We used actual contracted salary and benefits to establish new baseline, okay? We didn't simply roll up where we were in the previous year to project what salaries and benefits were going to be in the next year. And I realized that board members were under the impression that kind of analysis had been done previously. It clearly had not, and which was a significant contributing factor to the savings that we realized at the end of the year this past year. That's a big part of our budget, though, right? And so trying to be as accurate as we can with what was projected salaries is important. Not easy to do because our systems don't exactly talk to each other, but we were able to do that. And the projected savings that we are going to realize in this current year will carry forward to next year and are really a critical element in our being able to improve compensation in the division as a whole. We improved the request process and reduction strategies with better communication. It wasn't necessarily a black box kind of experience for folks. Things went in, not sure how they came out. We moved from Lotus 1, 2, 3 to linked Excel spreadsheets. A small step, but a big step for us as an organization. We're a year away from being able to use, in other words, we have one more budget cycle before we'll be able to use our new budgeting tool. We have to have a year of financial data in our system before we're able to use the new budgeting tool. But this is improved over what we were doing before, which means department heads and principals had access to live spreadsheets, right? The numbers that they actually could manipulate and see the changes in their line items for the first time. It was static previously. And then we created a distributed workflow providing additional checks and balances. So essentially there was no one keeper of the keys in this process. I want to remind the board what the board established as priorities. So as we look to see what we're able to include in this funding request to you all, we'll be able to kind of go back and say, well, did we hit what we said we were going to get at here? So continued commitment for market-based compensation systems, continuing to look how we're doing with teachers, how did we do, what additional progress can we make. There was a request to analyze paraprofessional, bus driver, monitor, school nurse models based upon a similar look at what pay scales look like across our comparison divisions. And we added our contiguous divisions as well, realizing that for some of these positions, folks might not travel very far to take a new job, but they might cross a county line in order to do that. And then we had the recommendation that the board has already received from the Compensation Task Force to look at a change in compensation model for trades in maintenance and technical positions that the board previously received. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about that tonight, but that's the mix. Reduce class size, create cash capital reserve to fund school capital projects. That's really important to us, okay? Our debt service is increased going into this next budget. We are going to be up over $31 million in debt, okay? And we're going to have to think about creative ways to fund projects moving forward. And quite frankly, I think we're going to need to explore ways to try and fund projects at least partially with cash. And we need to think about how we will do that over time. Establish cyclic replacement funding cycles. Sorry, went too far. The compensation, we also have to pass on 1 additional % for VRS, which we've included. Health insurance, of course, is under review. We do have proposals as a result of the RFP. We're going to be going back out and seeking some additional information on the advice of our consultants, which will delay a little bit the conversation that the board will have. It will not likely be until later in February, early March, until we're in a position of having to make a decision there. Working collaboratively, of course, with local government. Considerations for student growth, any changes that there might be in contracted services, and we already talked about the debt service. Also, the board asked us to look for ways to improve salary across the board, look at professional development, consider reallocation of resources based upon varying demographics across schools. And I'll just tell you right up front, that one is one that we're going to struggle with. We didn't make a lot of progress in this funding request to differentiate based upon demographics in the schools, needs in the schools. And I think we're going to need a more sophisticated system to do that kind of an analysis, which is coming. We don't have it at our fingertips right now. And then additional professional development to support our work on All-Century Skills and Climate Survey. And you're going to hear more about the work with the All-Century Skills at our next board meeting. I'm going to show you a little bit about Climate Survey tonight. Board members at the end of the week will receive the school-by-school analysis and what improvements were made over a period of 2 years with climate in schools. So we have our bottom line up front, Mr. McCosker, okay? Total recommended budget, $269,088,492. Our adopted last year was $260,884,091, which is an increase of approximately $8.2 million. Okay, that's a 3.14% increase, which includes a projected increase in debt service of $863,000 thereabouts. It uses the governor's proposed budget, which is the only information we have available to us at this point. There may be some changes as things get revved up in Richmond. school systems and local government officials would really like to see the state step up and do more of it, more support for K-12. And so I think there may be some pressure that may come to bear on our legislators to do just that. We'll have to see what happens. We are assuming some potential savings in healthcare based upon current enrollment rates and future plan design. We don't know for sure what that's going to look like. If that changes or it doesn't come in as projected, we'll have to make some adjustments. We used a projected increase of average daily membership of, and actually it's 510. I apologize. We had that number I think in two places. It's 510. We'll change that for that slide. And it is not balanced. Okay, we need an additional $1.25 million in revenue in order to get this balanced. Okay, so that's the oversight, kind of big picture of what we're trying to do here. So what about compensation? Okay, we're going to propose an across-the-board 2% increase for all employees. Not easy to do. Okay, not easy to do without some support from Richmond. And you know, we were really kind of hoping that we would see some support from the governor in his budget for pay raises for teachers. That didn't happen. But we think it's important to try and do. One of the things that we said to folks was that we got in and started to analyze the salary savings, and if we were able to determine what amount of that salary savings was recurring in nature, that we would redirect it into salaries. That's how we're able to do this. Okay, the savings that we are projecting in salaries is how we're able to go about getting across the board 2% increase for employees. If we didn't have that, this would be a very different size gap that we would be trying to close. Scale adjustment for teachers of about $1.2 million. And I'm going to show you what that's going to do to teacher scale. I hope you're excited about it as I am, because we've made some real progress. Other scale and position adjustments, monies that the board can reallocate based upon identified needs. And I'm going to present to you some analysis of needs within various classifications of employees. The board's going to have some flexibility about where to go with that as we go into a conversation. So I'm not proposing necessarily exactly where you should go, but I'm going to give you some data that might suggest where you might consider. Okay, and then that VRS pass on. So we've got $6.2 million in compensation as a part of this funding request. Okay, there's our very busy spreadsheet, okay? And this is the thing that is going to help us get our teachers to the median of the market, right? And what we're doing here is we're putting in about $1.2 million of additional funds. One thing I would like to point out is that last year that red line was at 15 years of experience. We are improving. It has moved up. I would also like to note that when we first brought these numbers to the board, we had folks that were as much as 10% away from the median of the market. And if you look at these numbers, we are going to be within 2 or 3% for everybody, and more so. Okay, if we can do this one more year, we will have our teachers at the median of the market. Okay, 3 years time total, and then we can talk about what our new target needs to be, because at that point it will be about an all boats rise. So what does that mean for teacher scale? Okay, and this is also really encouraging. Okay. So the manner in which we do this is that we apply the enhancement based upon the market first. So entry is at 41. We take that 1% pass along, and then we do the COLA on top of that, which is really not a COLA. It really is about a competitive advantage and increase for us across the division as a whole. And so you'll see we go to entry at 42,238. Very exciting. And remember, teachers that are new to us will also have the opportunity to participate in our New Teacher Institute, so they'll get another $500 in their pockets to get started in our community. And then you can see we top out at 35 years of experience at a little over $83,000. Okay. Additional areas of concern include previously presented recommendations from the Compensation Task Force. I'm not going to talk about those, but I want to remind you those are about the technology positions and skilled maintenance, and that there's more to than just the salary piece of it. It's also about a new evaluation system and moving to a merit pool compensation model in the future. And then the board asked us to look at some other areas, including bus drivers and monitors, nurses, paraprofessionals. We have had years worth of classification requests that I would like to see us begin to address and some organizational realignment considerations. This is where the board is going to get to decide where those resources are going to go in the coming weeks. So we're not going to go into great detail tonight, but you can take a look at where we are here. We have the salary ranges for each one of the divisions. We have the middle of each one of the salary ranges, and you can see Stafford is in the blue on each one of the charts. We have a number of areas that we could do better in. I will also point out, though, that one of the areas that we appear to be way below folks is in our paraprofessional area. So when we get to the point where the board is doing work sessions about where to allocate resources, we'll bring more specific information, the data that sits behind these graphs, and we'll see where the board wants to go there. Health insurance, okay? So we don't know, and I mentioned this a little bit at the beginning of the presentation. We're out to for RFPs. We're looking for new proposals. If for some reason that doesn't work for us, okay, and we end up staying with our current plan, we're looking at about a 2% increase. Keep in mind that we do have one more year that we could go, but that would mean that we would be out looking for new health care all by ourselves in another year's time. We have an opportunity here to work collaboratively with local government and end up hopefully with a benefit package that is consistent for government employees, whether you work for local government or you work for the school system. So I'm hopeful that we're able to move down that path, but the picture's not clear, right, okay, at this point. We didn't do better here, okay, and I'm disappointed to bring that to you. We had an increase in teacher resignations, not a significant increase, but we had more folks leave us. And so of the 267 resignations that we had this past year, we had 87 that identified economic reasons as the reason for leaving, 33%. And a large number of folks in that 0 to 15 years, which is exactly where we have been trying to focus our efforts with catching up to the median of the market. I do think that one more year, okay, that will start to change because we will be way more competitive at the entry level of our scale. Now, the part that goes along with that, which is also not great news, that's that our applicant pool continues to shrink. And so it is critically important that we be as competitive as we can to attract high-quality folks to the division across the board. This is referencing teachers, but across the board. If the pool gets smaller, that also means the number of really great folks gets smaller. And we need to be in a position to get them here and keep them here, right? I used this slide last year as a part of the presentation. Our recruitment and retention strategy has 5 pieces to it: compensation, benefits, work-life recognition, and professional development. I don't want to leave out work-life. We want folks to feel like they want to work here, right? That they're respected and they have an opportunity to contribute. And we know they make a difference. We recognize that, we reward them, and we give them an opportunity to grow professionally. This is a tough slide to look at, okay? You'll be getting more detailed information later in the week. This is one of the survey questions. Each pair of columns, 2014, 2015, represents one of the questions. So if you look at 4A, leadership in my school department treats me with respect. So if you look at the blue and the green in the first 2 columns, we want as much blue and green as we can get, because that's agree and strongly agree. Now, what's interesting is that pretty much everywhere, not as much in some places, but pretty much everywhere, we improved as a division because we made it a priority to focus on climate in our schools. The challenge here is that the aggregate level of the data is not particularly useful because the folks that have the biggest impact on what climate is like in schools are the folks that are in the schools or the folks that are in departments. So there are some things that we contribute to, like whether or not our staff members feel like they have the time and materials to do their job. We have a responsibility to make sure that we budget and allocate resources to do that. But things like being treated with respect, that we're effective, that we have good communication, those are all things that we can control within our schools and our departments. And so we will be making the same information available to you by school. It is information that is available publicly or would be available publicly. We've had a request to look at the information by the Freelance Star We've scheduled a meeting with them for next week, Wednesday, and we're going to share the data, and we're going to bring in some of our principals that have either maintained a really high level of work-life satisfaction or had significant improvement in their data from one year to the next, so that they can talk a little bit about what they did. And then we're continuing to work with the SEA, because this is very much a partnership with SEA to improve this over time. So this is not going away. I told folks this was important to us as an organization, and I meant it. And so now we're going to continue to improve. We're going to celebrate the places where we got that improvement, and we're going to figure out what we need to do different in areas where we didn't get quite where we needed to be. I would note, because anytime you do percentages, I think it's always important to say how many people participated, right? Quantify it. So this year we had 2,428 participants, which was up a little bit from where we were last year. You'll be able to see the N for every school and department when you get the individual school and department data. So last year, we added 20 teacher FTEs as a part, not in this current year, sorry, that are still there. In this proposal to you all, we are adding 36 additional teachers, 36 additional teachers. Some of those are special ed. The majority of them are regular classroom teachers. The board said that one of the things that was important for us to go after was improving class size. 29 special education paraprofessionals, counselor, social worker, half-time psychologist, occupational therapist, speech pathologist. Now, I put those up there under class size and growth, because growth is not necessarily just the number of students that you see as an increase in your organization. It's also the complexity of needs that you're trying to address. And we have some challenges for students with special needs that we'll hear more about as we go into the budget process, okay? So what are we going to be able to do with those additional teachers? The board has not formally adopted the staffing goals that we've brought to you. However, this is something you might want to do. We've done a gap analysis for our elementary schools to figure out how many teachers we would need for the board to implement the staffing standards for our elementary schools. You can do that with the number of FTEs that we added to this funding request. Okay? Now, there were a lot of standards that we are proposing. We can't get all of them at one time, but you could do this. You could say, we're going to take care of the elementary schools first, and we're going to staff based upon those proposed standards, and we're done, and then we look to see where the next place is that we would go. And if it turns out that we get some additional resources, whether it's from the locality or from the Commonwealth, you could go back to the standards and pick another one, because there are lots of them in there. We had diagnosticians at the elementary level. We had staffing at middle and high school. There are a lot of places you could go. That's the great thing about picking those standards, because when you have the resources, then you know where it is that you want to go in those areas. And then it's just a matter of prioritizing. I am suggesting that you look here first, because we can solve this problem at the elementary schools in next year's budget. The proposed use of the FY15 savings in FY16. This is something that I proposed to the board previously. This is the $8.3 million in salary savings that we got in FY15. I'm not changing that recommendation. The board will need to make a decision and request formally from supervisors that we do this if it's the board's desire. We do need to do that before the end of January. This is an important area for us to think about as well, okay? We have this capital improvement program that is bumping up against the debt, the amount of money that we can borrow. So, how are we going to address some of the projects that are in there? We may need to address them with cash. Also, we've got some debt that we're carrying on our side. So if we pay off, for example, the ERP, the financial human resources system, we'll save some debt there as well. Okay, so we are projecting in this current year $4.6 million in salary and benefit savings. Okay, this is how we can fund the salary increases for next year, but it also gives us an opportunity to do some one-time spending in this current year. So we put some placeholders in here for the board to consider, and we'll have those conversations when we get into the work sessions. The way this has been done previously is that this number hasn't rolled up until the end of the year, and then it was spent based upon a resolution that the board adopted. We're bringing it to you on the front end to say, what's your pleasure? Okay, what is it that the board would like us to try and do with what we see as projected savings? And there may be more. We don't know for sure what's going to happen between now and the end of the school year. One of the things that we know is that fuel prices continue to fall. There may be some additional savings there that could roll up into other areas that the board might consider doing one-time purchases. These are not dollars that you want to do something that is recurring, because we have used these monies in next year's budget to fund increases across the board. So there it all is, okay? There's the balance sheet, okay, with the ups and downs, all of the categories. The difference between the adopted and recommended is approximately $8.2 million. It's a 3.1% increase, okay? And then the books will have all of the supporting details behind that. So what's next? Budget books will be distributed. We have a board work session that's not scheduled till February 9th. If it's the board's pleasure, the board might want to schedule something before that, or charge FAB-C to take a look at the information and start to figure out where we might go. So with that, I'd like to say thank you for the opportunity to present that funding request. It doesn't address everything that we want to try to do, but it gets many of the things that the board had on its list of priorities, at least to start. Madam Chair.
Before I make my reaction, I will ask if any other board members have any comments before I do a wrap-up comment, but if anybody has any initial
I
comments.
just have a question.
Okay.
Oh, go ahead, Mrs. Healy. What was the recommendation of the FAB for the realized savings? Did you guys make a recommendation for that?
We had not yet.
Okay.
And I think we also wanted to see how the budget, because that may be a work task item for the FAB-C.
Gotcha,
Ms. Egan,
okay.
they're just placeholders at this point.
Gotcha.
That's kind of where we have spent money previously, but we have flexibility here.
Okay, good. I'm
Madam Chair.
shocked that we're talking about this now in January at the first meeting. This is great. Thank you.
I think you just said we have to have a motion by the end of January for,
Regarding the FY15
15.
savings,
right,
right.
and that's what's being audited
It's already audited.
through our
The-
investigative forensic audit, whatever we called it.
That's correct. But that doesn't tie to the clean, I mean, the board has already received a clean audit report, right?
Right.
That's the one that we need that kind of says we're okay to move forward. The next thing is about, well, how did that happen?
Okay. All right. It came up as a question to me because I thought we as a board said we wanted to have the results of that forensic audit before we made any movement with that realized savings.
Mr. Hirons, that money is there, okay? We will learn more about how that happened, the manner in which it happened. One of the things that the auditors are doing are reviewing. They have access to every budget adjustment that has been made to fiscal year 11 through fiscal year 15. We'll get there. But the money's there.
Okay.
The savings are there. There's no question about that. And we have capital needs that could benefit.
Otherwise, presentation is great. Great first brush, big brush here. I hope our staff is excited that we are making progress. We're not probably where everybody wants to be, but I think we're going to make some significant progress in this budget this year. So thank you for your hard work and your effort. And that February 25th date, I think, was something that the FAB-C did discuss, and we sort of set the budget calendar, and our goal with that was to get to the Board of Supervisors before March, or at their first March meeting, where they start beginning to discuss the tax rate and everything else that goes along with it. So they will have their data that they need to begin their discussion.
The additional debt service for next year, is that primarily due to Stafford High School being I mean, I would presume it is. Okay, and
We-
that's something that our FAB-C perhaps could discuss with the supervisors, because the supervisors have, as I recall, separated our budget into the debt service and then the other funding. So if our debt service goes up by, what is it, 863,000 or
correct.
so, then that may not be perceived as an increase in the amounts that we are requesting for, our operations. So it may not be as bad as it looks, or not as bad, but it may actually be less, because we have no control over that debt service. I mean, that was something we contracted for when we, built the school, and it's been a number of years that we do get those separate funding. Ms. Kidby probably could explain it better than I do.
Typically, they recognize them separately, but they do recognize it as operating. And if there is an increase in our debt service, that's an increase in our operating expense, and it's reflected in the entire amount of increase or decrease the Board of Supervisors or our local funding body may allocate in terms of operating. So technically, it's a separate line item, but if it goes up, sometimes the operating can go down to balance it. That, historically, that's what we've seen.
But we have not seen such a significant increase because of the cost of Stafford
Yeah,
High
the
School.
increase,
That's a lot, almost $1 million.
We have seen a steady increase. It may be slightly more this year, but I don't know if it's significantly more.
Yeah, there's been some debt that's been repaid over time.
Yeah.
There's been some fundings that we
Yeah,
kind of.
yeah. To your point, I'd probably have to go back and look at it to make sure. But quite frankly, I anticipated it increase even more than the 863. Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised.
We probably need to take a look, planning for the future, if it's going to go up more next year for that debt increase, because I presume by the end of this year, we will have completely borrowed all the Stafford High School money. So it's something to at least anticipate and put on the horizon out there as well. Thank you.
I do have a couple comments.
Yep. Ms. Kidby?
I don't know if you noticed me scribbling up here while you were doing your presentation, but
making
I
me
now
nervous.
have 4 pages of questions. However, this is probably not the best time to bring those forward, and I look forward to doing that during our FAB-C meeting and to get a little more analysis about how we balance the budget. But I did have one general question. We've never brought, as long as I've been on the board, we've never brought forward a budget that doesn't balance. The superintendent's never done that. What was your thought with that?
Well, on the paper, it balances, but we're
I know,
$1.25 million
but
short.
you're missing 1.2 million, so basically it doesn't balance. You don't know where the
Actually,
revenue is coming from.
I think what we'll probably find is that might be the smallest increase that has been asked for in a while in terms of potentially additional local funding.
Yeah.
It is not a $12 million increase. So, and I would add this, right? We're all familiar with the 3 R's in education, right?
Okay.
So this funding request kind of hits 3 important R's. They're just different R's. So it's relevant in that it's aligned to what you all set as goals, okay? And there are a couple goals we didn't get as far as we want, but we're gonna make progress there. It's reasonable in that it's a measured approach. Where we put the money, you will notice a difference, okay? If you just spread it out everywhere, you won't have much of an impact anywhere. And then it's responsible because it represents good stewardship and use of our resources, particularly the work that we did in analyzing our projected compensation obligations for next year.
So of the 8.2 increase, you've already identified 7 million of it coming.
There's a combination of things that are at play here. One is the projected savings in salary and
3.8.
benefits, but there is some support from Richmond for some number of additional teachers at the elementary level. Not as many as what we're proposing, but there's some help there, and there's some help in some other areas that offset costs for us. And we can get into more detail with the board as we get into a work session.
The other point that I wanted to make just real quickly is a point in relation to the process. I am just so pleased that a higher level of oversight came forward on this budget, both within the finance department and outside of the finance department. This is something that we as a board have been asking for quite some time, and it's so refreshing to have a superintendent and a chief financial officer that are in a position where they're taking those steps. I really appreciate that.
Mr. McCut- any other comments?
Sure. Just real quick, good job. We've got some work to do, though, so, yeah.
I don't have as good a way to do the 3 Rs, but I think what's exciting from my perspective is we've gotten it early, we've gotten analysis, and now we have time. And I think many times watching a budget process from not just up here, but out there, it's so rushed, we're all running around. This gives us some time to really do a deep dive into this document. Hearing, you all may not have your 4 pages of questions like Ms. Kidby, but the FABC is meeting as planned on January 20th to make some kind of start onto the budget. The next scheduled budget meeting, budget work session is that February 9th date. Is there a sense of the board that there would want to be any meeting prior to that? After, I would personally suggest letting the FABC take a start on the 20th and having a meeting after that, but if there is a different, our next meeting is January 26th. I would love to get a sense of the board of what kind of meeting. We're getting a lot more time to work on it, so I'm hoping personally that we approach it that way.
You said we had a work session on the 9th?
The 9th is part of our budget calendar. We already have a work session on the budget. I'm just trying to query our board to see if we have a lot of good time. Let's get stuff done.
Madam Chairman, given the uncertainty of the weather in February, I mean, I hope this mild weather continues. I think we would be prudent to consider having a work session prior to our next meeting, which would, after the FABC meets and is able to come back to the board, because the sooner we can start delving into this and let the superintendent know what questions we have or whatever information we need, the sooner we'll get it back and be able to move forward. So, not that I'd like to have more work sessions, but
This is
I just think a month may be too long to wait to get started on that.
Is there the 26th, which is our next Tuesday, or 2 weeks from tonight, 5:30?
How long do we need?
I mean, this is going to be our start at it. I mean, I think we should at least have an hour and a
I think a
half.
5:30 start, and I think it's a good
5:30.
idea to go ahead and get it sooner than later. Go ahead and knock some of this out, and maybe, we can even speed up or accelerate our budget calendar.
Presentation, yeah, absolutely. Get it over to Anthony and Company, yeah.
I can do the 26th at 5:30.
26th at 5:30. All right. Madam Clerk, if you will go ahead and add that to our,
Madam Chairman, who should we send our request for information for that meeting to? Should we send that through you or?
I would say
does-
to
Roberta.
To Roberta.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, if there's any questions, you may also send some. Of course, all members are welcome to attend the FABC meeting to see where we start. I would encourage each other to talk to each other of the things that glaringly stand out of analysis that you would like done, especially if there is analysis or additional things that you did not think were covered. Those would be items to bring sooner rather than later, so that we have as much information as possible. Yes, I would say to send them to Ms. Euring, and then she can distribute to us, so we all know what questions are on the horizon. Any other comments? All right, let's move on to 2.02, an update on Stafford High School. I will defer to the superintendent at this time.
I'm going to defer to Mr. Haran.
Good evening, Madam Chairman, board members, Dr. Benson. Tonight, I'm just going to provide you a real quick update on Stafford High School. I know many of you had some questions on that. As you know, we completed Phase 1, which is the construction of the new building. The contractor's punch list completion stands roughly around 95%, with estimated completion in the March timeframe. We were able to complete a lot of the outstanding items over the holidays, which was great. But now we still have still a large number of items to be done, including some repairs to the vinyl tile in various classrooms in the hallway where it was installed improperly. So those things are happening in the evening and on the weekends. So we're also finalizing all associated change orders with Phase 1. And so we are trying to get those completed by April. And then obviously, I think the board is aware that we're exploring options with the contractor related to the construction delays. And we certainly will bring that information back to the board when we have some tangible items to bring forward. Any questions on Phase 1?
Mr. Horan,
Yes,
the
ma'am.
options related to construction delays, are you talking about the damages on,
Yes, ma'am.
under the contract?
Yes, ma'am. We're trying to work with the contractor to maybe provide some in-kind things that were associated with the school that we were unable to buy as part of the contract versus in lieu of assessing some of those damages.
Well, of course, any decision along that line would be the board's.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
these options, who's proposing the options?
The superintendent and I developed a list of items to provide to the contractor. They were things such as the restrooms and the storage building near the tennis
You don't need to
courts,
go into
but
detail,
those items.
but I think, Madam Chairman, I'd like to have a discussion by the board of that approach towards the contract damages, and I'm not sure if options, I would consider it options. It may be a bit more complicated than that appears, but I'm glad there's no negotiations
Yes, ma'am.
taking place on behalf of the board at this point. Thank you.
Any other questions related to Phase 1?
One question I wanted to add, thank you, that was, exactly about the construction delay options, because we do need we need a meeting to say officially, hey, this is how many days late exactly at $5,000 or whatever that contractual amount was. This is what's owed to us. And then has there been any official discussion with the contractor about any of these costs or?
Well, we certainly put the contractor on notice, that they did not meet completion date. And so, and then we have a completion date. So we have a defined number of days that are in question, that have potential delays involved in those. And so we have provided the contractor and said, these are some items, again, these are some items that we'd like you to price out, so that we have an idea of what the cost would be, so that we collectively staff can look at those things and obviously bring them to the board to make some decisions if we want to proceed with that. So I think the answer,
totally
I
understand.
think the answer is yes.
Yes, so the answer is, yes, that you'll come back.
Yes, sir.
We'll get, we're owed as a school division this amount of money, some say 500,000 is about right, I think you said last time.
Yes, sir.
And then, and then we'll start talking about options and from there. And I do understand that you've mentioned last time about the, getting cash out of the folks. And what is the firm? Is it Hess Construction?
It's Hess Construction.
So it is
yes,
Hess
sir.
Construction.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And getting the cash out of the firm is difficult and a lengthy process, and so the alternate course of action would be to try to get some of the fields paved, but those are the options that would come back to the board.
I think there's a lot of options for the board to consider, and those are some, yes, sir, absolutely.
So the other thing I wanted to ask you, Mr. Horan, was on finalizing the change orders. Have the change orders been charged to us? How much have the change orders cost?
Well, I have a slide that goes
okay.
through.
Okay.
We don't break down every change order, but we have
No,
them
but
in
the
aggregate.
general change
Yes,
orders?
sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Madam Chair. It says the punch list is 95% complete. The word out there on the street is there's a punch list of 5,000 items.
Absolutely.
Sounds huge, sounds big building. most of the punch list items, I'm assuming are, 5-minute fixes.
I wouldn't.
Some big ones.
Yes, sir. There are some big, and they're not. I wouldn't consider them 5-minute fixes, but they include touching up paint, fixing tile floors, fixing lights that might not have been installed properly. Those type of
Are
things.
there any
And
big punch item,
the floor. I think currently the biggest is floor, and it's sporadic. It's in different places where the quality of the workmanship of the vinyl tile that went in was not good. And then we have some paint issues. Some of the finish of the paint was not put in according to what we felt was in the contract. And so we have almost like an eggshell finish in some of the classrooms where we wanted a semi-gloss finish. And that has that's a big deal when you're trying to clean walls and keep them from. So those are some of the issues that are still outstanding.
okay, will we reach 100%?
The goal is March.
March.
To have that, yes, sir.
Okay.
But again, some of it deals with how we can negotiate the fix for these. So they certainly, the contractor has a position on some of these, and sometimes it's difficult.
You got big arms, arm wrestle. Do you have additional slides for phase 2 and 3?
I do, yes,
Because I'm
sir.
interested in the schedule and where we're at with the
I do.
schedule overall. Alrighty.
I do have one alibi. Oh, please.
I had a quick question about Phase 1. You're talking about the floor. Is there any safety issues with that
No,
floor?
ma'am.
Okay.
No, ma'am.
That's all I needed.
If we were talking about the punch item, it may be in another slide, Mr. Horan. I know there is a big problem with the smell,
Yes, sir.
right? And then I don't know if you're going to talk about that later or.
No, we can certainly talk about it now.
Okay, talk about it
we,
now.
We feel, staff feels that it's been addressed, although from time to time, there still is an issue.
Right.
A lot of it was a combination of issues. Some of it was these backflow preventer valves that are in the venting system.
Right.
They were installed improperly.
Right.
And so over the holidays, we fixed many of those, if not all.
Reversed.
We
or
did
something.
we didn't do the smoke test, but we did a mint smell, and that helped us discover there were some improper connections in some of the vent lines. So that contributed. We put Studer caps, as I've updated the board in the weekly updates. We put some of those on some of the caps. That's helped prevent some of the smell. And then we found some workmanship issues where just the other day we found where a screw on a clean-out cover had gone through the actual cover, and so there was sewer gas coming through that penetration. So all of those have, over time, and it's gotten less and less and less until the last few weeks, we've reported very few, if none. Yes, sir. So I think we are definitely going in the right direction. I know we're going in the right direction. I think we've got it eradicated. But sometimes the atmospheric weather conditions outside aren't there that day, and so it's hard to replicate some of the things that happen. Right. And then the next week, there it is, and so we discover something. So as I think I presented, it's a systematic and long-term approach, but I do believe the environment has improved significantly, and we check with the principal and his staff every week.
He's up there, I see him.
And so, not to say that there won't be an issue that occurs next week.
I guess, so so would this be considered an architectural flaw, or was it?
No, I wouldn't say that. I've wrestled with this, as I think I've passed on to the board. I've wrestled with it with 3, 4, 5 different schools since I've been here. It's really a condition of how some of these gases, strictly speaking, from a roof vent issue. There are code requirements that require us to put our air intake so many distances
from the
venting.
Exhaust, right?
We try to exceed that significantly because we know the code, in many cases, if you just meet the code distances, you still have the problems.
But so we met the code on the
absolutely,
distance between.
Absolutely, and we've exceeded it.
So the architect laid the plans out correctly, and the architect is
Grimm and Parker.
Grimm
yes,
and Parker,
yes,
right?
Sir. Yes, sir.
So they laid the plan so it wasn't on the architect. So was it? So
I think
again, is it back to Hess Construction?
No, I don't believe so either. Some of the issues that we found improper connections, those items, but it's just things Mosley built 2 or 3 of our buildings. We had issues with that. When we had the design of our renovations, we had issues with that. It's, I don't know how to explain it other than it's some of the roof lines and the different roof lines on some of the buildings, and you have certain atmospheric conditions that cause the gases to settle on these roofs and travel. And someday they'll do it, and then 3 months later,
Right.
they do it again. And so
You know,
it's
and I appreciate your answer. It's just that it's almost like, the gases are settling on Stafford County schools more than they settle like maybe on IBM in New York City.
No,
and we're paying the same money for the schools. So I guess what I'm saying is, we need to get to the answer, and it seems like you're getting to the answer on that, but we don't want to make another mistake. So if it's something that we have to stipulate in the contract that, hey, my friend, if you don't install the backflow gas preventer in the correct form, then, you're going to be on the, so are we paying for these change orders?
they're not change orders. We're
I mean, are we
correcting
paying for
things.
these fixes?
No, sir, other than the Studer gaps that we put, and they were,
We paid for some of the
they're
fixes.
they're very inexpensive, $4 each, the
$4?
caps, yes, sir. But all the other items, is contractor responsible.
Okay, and those things are the punch list? So are you saying that the smell is fixed now?
Yes, sir, I would say it is. Now, next week, there might be an issue, and it might come up. And we might find a thing that we haven't been able, again, it's a systematic
So
approach to
it
make
might be
sure.
something, another new problem that may come up.
I
that you
wouldn't
aren't-
say anew, we might find somewhere where by doing the other fixes, it takes the path of least resistance, some of these, this gas smell. So I'm fairly confident that we're there, if not very, very close.
Because I think it was last week that, I have a son and daughter in Stafford High School.
Yes, sir.
Right? And I have a son, and I have two sons, and, so I'm not too far out of touch with these things. Two sons at Ferry Farm, right? So I have a big family. And they had the doors all open, and it was smelling pretty bad. And it was kind of terrible from what I understand.
Well, it's been very bad at times, yes, sir.
It was a bad atmospheric day. So, I mean, so I'm just very, very concerned that we're 95% on completion. And so, of course, we just have to keep systematic. We just have to keep.
Yes, sir. And we, not to make an excuse, but we wrestled with this at Shirley Heim, at Anthony Burns,
Right.
and Dixon Smith significantly. And it was a systematic approach to how we
And
approached
then
it.
they finally fixed.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
that's, okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Phase 2 and 3?
Yes, ma'am. Phase 2, it includes the demolition of the old building, the construction of the new practice fields and tennis courts, and then student parking. The old Stafford High School hazardous material abatement, which has to be completed, it's being completed in phases. It's about 95% done. The last piece is the old locker room area and the wellness rooms. They're abating that now. And then once that's completed, the entire building will have been abated. The old high school is about 50% completed in demolition. And so with an estimated completion at the end of February.
The one question I have, Madam Chair, if I may, is on the you mentioned abatement. So are the kids are, I just want to, and I got some questions about, so the kids are safe, right, walking past that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and so we've enclosed
Yes,
the
sir.
area?
What this process does is takes any hazardous material, like any asbestos that might have been there, or PCB containing caulking, that was in this day and age when we were put in. It abates that before all the construction debris is
Okay.
knocked down and segregated into different piles and then disposed of in landfills or wherever. So that's that process. It's very safe.
Okay.
For the construction workers as well as any students and staff and community members. Part of this phase is also the new student parking. The new student parking is broken into two areas. We call it the lower and upper. And as soon as the majority of the building is demoed, they're going to start with the lower parking. And that's the area that transitions next to the existing school, the new school. And so it'll start. And we're looking at starting that in February and completing in April. The month of April Mr. Hirons, this might be where you're going. The month of April is going to be a transition month at Stafford High School from a parking perspective. We're going to be transitioning some of the student parking from the student lot down to this new lower lot that's been constructed. So it opens up an area in the student lot that we can start to prepare for the roundabout and the construction of the upper lot. The fields and the tennis courts are also going to be started in late February, and so the fill cut from underneath the school and the parking lot will start to be transported into the area that's right in front of the old flagpoles of the high school, and that borrow pit will start to be filled up in a process, and then the tennis courts and the practice fields constructed in that area. And all of this is to be completed at the latter part of June. Any questions?
Yeah, Mr. Rain. The building coming down, is that a schedule push? Because you had presented before and you
It
said
is.
the building should be down by the end of the calendar year of last year.
Right, and that was based on the original schedule. And so when the building 1, phase 1 was delayed, we shifted, as I briefed the board, we shifted the entire schedule into, so those 3 months that it was delayed, essentially 3, I guess, it all shifted. So now these dates have also shifted. So yes, sir, it is a delay.
How are we holding to these dates?
Well, I think I updated the board Friday that we're 2 weeks behind on the demo of the building.
So we're going to be pushing into, the end is June?
Well,
So
that
we're gonna-
February completion includes, it was originally set for the early part of February.
Does that take into any account weather at all? Is
There's weather
built into your
delays
schedule?
built into the schedule, yes, sir.
How much?
I couldn't tell you
Roughly.
right off. Couldn't tell you. I'm not going to give a stab at it, but if you'd like for that information, I can give
Yeah,
it
I
to
think
the
it'd be
board.
pretty interesting because June, we're talking about the end of this school year. Much like the school was supposed to be, the new building was supposed to be completed June of last year. We're going to be pushing into summer, into July, into August if there are any additional delays. You know, there's an expectation from the community that this school is going to be, the project's going to be done by the start of next school year.
That's correct, and it still will be. Phase 3 is scheduled to be completed by July. So
I'm going to mark this meeting.
it will.
You said that. All right. But follow on to Mr. McCosker's question also, is there any sort of DEQ or state, federal inspection of this hazardous abatement? Because
Yes, sir.
I share the concern.
Yes, sir.
You know, I appreciate it, and I drive out there. I'm out there every Tuesday and Thursday morning dropping my son off. And I see that where the kids have to walk right next to this building coming down. If for some reason, and I assume, you know, I can tell there's black tarp on the inside of the school, which I assume is part of the hazardous waste abatement and process to get that stuff out of there. Somebody leaves a curtain open, you know, it presents the potential for this hazardous material to get airborne and out there right next into, you know, an area where the students are walking. So what type of inspections do go on, either from a state level, federal level, county level?
I think from the locality, we have permits that were required by the contractor. We have a consultant, too, that does air sampling for the abatement. So
Where are the
there's
air
no-
samples taken from?
I'm sorry?
Where are the air samples taken from?
They're taken inside the facility.
Inside the
Yes, sir.
facility? What about anything right there where the building is coming down?
Not
where
outside,
the
no.
walkway is?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I have the concern, I trust, and, you know, I know everyone takes this very seriously, and there's, you know, a ton of focus from a DEQ and from a federal level on hazardous material removal. You know, I'm trusting those regulations, those inspections are doing their job, but we are talking about the safety of 2,000 students.
I can provide the board with the process and all the details associated with it for.
It would probably
so
be
you're
helpful to
comfortable.
me, at least, to, you know, ease some of my
Sure,
concerns.
absolutely,
Me as well. That's a good point.
Maybe a little
absolutely.
more, Yeah. Thanks.
Okay.
Madam Chairman, this is just a note for the board to keep in mind when we're looking at these options for the damages, that all this extra time and impact on our students and our community is potentially a consequential damage that we need to keep in mind, because it is a hardship for the students there to have this delay. And, you know, we're pushing, you know, completed in June. I mean, I'd say that's if we're fortunate. But, you know, every day that we're delayed, and 3 months is significant delay, you know, it has an impact there. Because I know I visited Stafford High School in December, and there were a lot of things that were undone. I mean, it's more than just the painting and the floors. I mean, it seemed like every time we looked somewhere, oh, that's on the punch list, or that's on the punch list.
Yes, ma'am.
or
Mr.
whatever.
Hirons was correct. There's over 5,000 items on the punch list.
But not just the punch list, but this exterior work, and the, you know, the longer that it's taken us to demolish it, you know, the longer the students are exposed. And I am concerned that there's no samples being taken, you know, outside the building. I mean, it's fine to take them inside, but, you know, where the students are, and you know, whoever, you know, is visiting the school, is walking past this every day, it sounds like we have no means to judge or know, you know, whether there is anything airborne. So it's just something I'd like to see what's being done, because just taking them inside may not be enough, because this is taking so long, you know, to get done.
Any other board member comments? I will just close mine. Having been out and visiting Stafford High School, it is such a beautiful learning space, and I think that is why so much this board is interested in making sure that it remains that way, and that anything that we can do to keep it on track, because it is a beautiful learning space for our students. So I think that's also why we have such interest in making
Is this
sure.
the final slide?
No, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, I just got confused.
Sorry.
Okay.
Could-
Any other questions on Phase 2?
Phase 3.
And then Phase 3 is the upper parking and the roundabout. Again, those are the dates associated with those efforts. And you can see the final completion of the roundabout and the tie-in to Chinchester Park entrance, and is July of 16. Any questions?
Just the final slide?
No, sir.
How many slides do you have?
This is the final slide.
Thank you.
Okay. So you had asked, this, I'm going to run you through, the starting contingency was $1 million. The field set aside was 4.8, I mean, I wish it was 4.8, 0.48, for a total of roughly $1.5 million in the contingency at the beginning of the project. Real quick, the field hockey lighting, which wasn't part of this particular contract, there's funds used for that. Change orders 1 through 9, which are a variety of issues during the Phase 1, totaled about $480,000. Pending change orders is about $280,000. So those are the pending ones that I referenced that we're trying to complete by April on Phase 1. And then there was some additional classroom that we briefed the board on prior to the holidays, that we were going to fund some additional classrooms for that. And those funds obviously came out of that 1.48. So you can see that we have roughly $560,000 left in what I call the contingency fund. Some of it's in the field set aside, and some of it's in the contingency, but it's all essentially unencumbered funds associated with the project. Any questions?
I just have one other concern from the community, and it was the fire drills that have been going on at the school. Can you explain, I guess the first time I heard about the fire drill, or some sort of, and they use the word code issues, which we've been assured there's no code issues, but I would like to hear from you, Mr. Haran. It seems that in a committee meeting, the Board of Supervisors, Anthony Romanella briefed the Board of Supervisors that there are issues with the time for the children to come out, getting out of the school, the egress.
Not to my understanding. I know there's some, you know, as we opened the school, there's a learning curve, and that time, I believe it was around 5 minutes or so. Took a while to get down, and it's currently 3 minutes into the protective stairwell,
Right.
you know, the egress. So I'm not privy to running the fire drills and working with Greg Martin, but my understanding is that information was provided. We're in line with Brook Point and the other high schools into sufficient. There's a target, I believe, there's a target of evacuation. There's no state code or requirement of a certain time, but there's a target from the fire marshal that said if we could get it under 5 minutes, that's with our target. And so I believe Stafford High School is in the 3 minutes and some odd second range. So we feel very confident, I think I can speak for the superintendent and the staff, that we feel very confident that we're very, very good from that perspective. I think the issue that Mr. Romanella brought to the Board of Supervisors is a disagreement of the occupancy load on the 3rd floor. It's not a safety issue at this point in time, or it's not a safety issue at all, but it's an occupancy issue that we're working with county staff to resolve.
So is the occupancy issue on the 3rd floor based on the egress for fire drill?
No, sir, not on the egress, not on the times. It has nothing to do.
Has nothing
No,
to do
sir.
with the times?
No, sir.
Okay. Yes, so I guess my concern is, based on from what I heard allegedly from this meeting was, the Board of Supervisors were very upset that they had not heard about any, I guess it came about that we actually cut a stairwell.
That's incorrect. That's incorrect, sir.
So what I asked Dr. Benson to do is baseline us with the correct information. So baseline us with, as a board, what exactly is the time that the kids need to get into a protective stairwell or out? So right now, I think we have Stafford High School making it into the 2 protective there's 2 protective stairwells, right?
No, sir, there's 3.
There's 3?
Yes,
So
sir.
that center stairwell is considered a protective stairwell?
No, the center stairwell is the
Not.
4th stairwell.
That's the 4th one?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That services the academic wing.
So we have 3
sir.
protected stairwell. So, whatever those state guidelines, regulations are, I think the board deserves to know that. I asked for that, and I asked for, are we meeting the guidelines? And I think that would be it. If we understand the guidelines and we're meeting the guidelines.
I believe that information has been provided.
Oh,
In the board update, we provided the egress times as well as an excerpt from a communication that we received from the fire chief about what the expectations were for
Okay.
into the stairwell and out to of the building, and that Stafford High School is meeting that expectation. We also are reviewing the design of the central stairwell as it appears that it may meet the 2012 code as an egress point, and we've asked code officials to review that. I also have a timeline for the events regarding the design of Stafford High that I will share with the board.
Good. Okay. I just want the right information, so that's good. And if you provided it in the update, okay.
And in addition to that information, I had requested the history of this alleged appeal to some board at the county.
That was the last
with
reference
respect
that I
to
just
that.
made, Ms. Healy, and
Okay.
that goes back to at the point where the building was designed and what happened afterwards as it went through the process.
Okay, so that will specifically include any information with respect to an appeal?
Detailed
Okay,
timeline
fine.
and corresponding communication as a reference point.
Including, but not limited to, the appeal, correct?
The
Okay.
entire timeline. Yes, ma'am.
Right, that's good.
Okay, anything else?
Any other
Anybody
questions?
else? Thank you, Mr.
Yes,
Horan.
ma'am.
Let's move on to citizen comments. Speakers may identify themselves by name, address, and organizational affiliation if the spokesperson represents an organization. Speakers shall also announce the purpose or topic of their comments. 3 minutes shall be allotted to all speakers. The chairman reserves the right to restrict the total citizen comment received at any particular meeting to a predetermined maximum number of minutes with the approval of the board. Citizen comment which is profane, abusive, or which threatens imminent physical harm shall be ruled out of order by the chairman. Although the board provides the opportunity for citizen comment, individuals desiring to register complaints against division employees or division programs, services, or activities may also utilize the procedures outlined in policy 1113, public complaints. I have a list of speakers who have signed in. Please know if you did not sign in and do wish to speak, you will be given that opportunity. I will call out 5 names at a time. What I would ask is if you would just line up down the center aisle, and then I'll read another 5 names so that we can have people come up quickly and easily. So the first 5 names, Sharon Foley, Karen Bingham, Melissa Dolphy, I believe, Cindy Russell, and Jacqueline Cornelio. If I really mess up your name, now I know what you went through. So come on forward. Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Chair, school board members, Dr. Benson, Happy New Year. Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Sharon Foley. I live at 49 Fountain Drive in the Aquia District. I want to thank Dr. Benson for that budget presentation. This is my 13th year in Stafford County school system, and as the best budget presentation I have seen ever. I actually feel like I now know what is going on. As a parent, that's really great, because now I feel like I can ask good questions, and I can go to my representative and say, do this. And that's what all I want to say tonight, very briefly, is this community has got to support education with our wallets. Every single person in this room who pays taxes in this county needs to support education with our wallets, and I urge everybody in this room and in this school community to get in touch with their Board of Supervisor and show that this school system is on track, is moving forward with an adequate budget, with good information for the Board of Supervisors, and we now have to follow that through with supporting that budget and even supporting it more, because this county is going in the wrong direction because of the challenges the schools are facing. And we have got to, as citizens, demand that we fund the schools and get the schools that everybody in this room wants, including all those wonderful bus drivers in yellow. Thank you very much. Good night.
I guess I should call it Karen Bingham and Friends.
At all.
At all.
Good evening, Chairman Hazard, Vice Chairman Egan, members of the board, and Dr. Benson. My name is Gina DeMola, and I am joined this evening by my fellow band leaders, Summer Pauley, Matt Roca, Joey Keogh, Becca Milson, and Shane Davler. We are here this evening to thank you for once again supporting Band Together to Fight Hunger. Band Together to Fight Hunger 2015 was once again a huge success, thanks to our incredible community citizens and business partners. We would like to thank all who attended or dropped off food and donations prior to the event.
We are very excited to share we once again had incredible support from our community business partners, to include donations for concessions, free Chick-fil-A sandwich coupons, a 2,000-pound food drop for the Fredericksburg Region Food Bank from Food Lion, and cash donations totaling $5,260 from the following donors: Dr. Elizabeth Attrid, Kohl's Cares for Kids, Pancho Villa, Yo Fresh Yogurt, Chick-fil-A, Sam's Pizza, High Note Trips, WDF Trucking, Food Lion, Stafford Lakes Walmart, Ferry Farm Walmart, and our Garrisonville Walmart. Donations from our business donors provided 10,520 meals for our community and transported all of our donations to the Fredericksburg Region Food Bank.
We'd also like to send our thanks to our Stafford County community, who attended in large numbers, and with their help, we collected $1,759.90. This equates to an additional 3,520 meals for our community, as $1 equals 2 meals. During the course of the evening, with help of our band booster families and Kenny and Lynn Fletcher with WDF Trucking, we loaded 8,418 pounds of food. This is an increase of 2,487 pounds from last year. This donation of non-perishable food provided an additional 7,015 meals for the Fredericksburg Regional Food Bank, because 1 pound of food equals 1¼ meals.
Band Together 2015 provided a unique opportunity for our community to celebrate both our Stafford County high school marching bands and our commitment to the hungry citizens right here in our surrounding communities. The grand finale consisted of 400+ Stafford County band students, was the highlight of the evening. This was a chance for all of us to come together and perform You're a Grand Old Flag and America the Beautiful for our own community.
We're thrilled to report that the Band Together 2015 provided 21,000 meals for the Fredericksburg Regional Food Bank. We are sure you'll agree that our band programs make a huge difference in our community. Thank you for continuing to support music programs in our schools. We look forward to welcoming everyone back to Mountain View High School for Band Together 2016 next November.
Good evening, everyone. How are you guys? My name is Melissa Duffy, and I am a special needs bus driver for this awesome county. 2 years and some odd months ago, God answered a prayer for me, an answer in the form of becoming a school bus driver. Before I became a bus driver, I was miserable and working far from home, especially after the birth of my second daughter. I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom again, but still needed an income. I am blessed to be a bus driver. Some look down on that title or don't think highly of it at all, but I do. I hold this title with pride. My mom told me about this job thanks to a driver in Spotsylvania giving the suggestion that I try for the job. So I gave it a whirl, hoping and praying. Landing this job was amazing, but no easy feat. Studying for the CDL, going through training, and various testing was very difficult for me, but I am proud to have done it. I am so blessed and happy to do what I do, to have made the friends I have, to feel like part of the team, and work for the awesome office personnel we have. Being part of this team, we safely transport these babies to and from school daily, talk with them, get to know them, and help when possible. And as a big bonus, my youngest comes with me, and I have my oldest when she's out of school. And the best part, no babysitters. This job is by far the best I've ever had, and I'm the happiest I've ever been, and I plan to do it as long as I can. But it does not come without a financial burden due to the lack of pay. A financial burden that constantly has my husband and myself stressed trying to make ends meet and care for our daughters properly. We make it, but it's hard, as is for many. The surrounding counties make at least $2 to $3 more per hour than we do. One huge reason we have such a high turnover in drivers and always low on drivers is due to the lack of pay. If our compensation was comparable to the surrounding counties, we would be more apt to securing drivers who don't want to stay based on pay and stress. Even trash truck drivers make more, so that is like saying the precious cargo we carry on a daily basis is less valuable than garbage.
Good evening, Madam Chairwoman, school board members, and Dr. Benson. Thank you in advance for your undivided attention to the matter I am about to speak to you about that comes from my heart. My name is Cindy Russell, and I have been employed with Stafford County Transportation Services for 1 year. I humbly stand before you tonight to guide you through the confident mind yet heavy heart of a confidant, caretaker, chauffeur, nurse, education advocate, but above all, guardian of safety and protector of the children that I drive on a daily basis. Most of the time, we are referred to by others in the general public as a simple school bus driver. But I truly believe if we were able to look upon ourselves as a vast majority of the public looks upon myself and my fellow drivers, we would struggle to find the courage, strength, determination, undivided attention, and infallible focus that are required to meet our daily job requirements. A good example of this public misconception of a school bus driver's importance is a statement made on a social media site to a parent school bus driver by a parent. We are not concerned about what you think. After all, driving a school bus is nothing more than a housewife hobby. If your position was regarded as anything of value, you wouldn't be making the same or less than an uneducated McDonald's employee or a trash truck driver. What keeps us motivated and hopeful for a day to come is when we will be recognized and compensated as dedicated employees of Stafford County School System. We do this job for love of the children we transport, but we do have families that we need to be able to financially support and take care of. What keeps us going is those fleeting moments when a parent that's thankful meets your bus at the end of a long, steep driveway to thank you for caring so much about the safety and protection of their children. In the parents' words, my most precious possession. Upon her leaving the doorway of your bus, she leans into you and says, God bless your loving soul. I couldn't do your job for $1 million, and you're doing it for less than fast food wages. I would like to tell you a story now that is very dear to my heart. I lost my 52-year-old cousin and my best friend in the world on October 11th, 2014, after a very, very brief 6-month battle with cancer. She was employed as a school bus driver. Only hours before her peaceful passing, she and I reminisced her life. Her attitude about her job will always be a life lesson to me, the lesson being that she was proud of the job she held as a school bus driver. She was never bitter about dying at a young age. Instead, she encouraged me to become a bus driver. She even urged her oldest of her 3 children to become a bus driver. She said to me, as she encouraged her daughter to continue driving as a substitute until she was contracted, I will not be here to see my precious Emily get a contract. She wanted us to be held in high regard as a school bus driver and receive pay and benefits that drivers deserve for the job they do on a daily basis. She wanted Emily to have something down the road to give to her children that they could have as an inheritance. My cousin realized after all her years of service that she had put in, she was leaving her family with not much because of the underpayment she had received for years as a school bus driver. She let me know to keep the fight up, to be a voice for the paid school bus drivers on a daily basis of transporting the precious cargo of Stafford County residents. She knew that she could leave this earth knowing that her job was one of moral decency, honesty, and integrity, but most of all, she had driven the most precious cargo safely to and from home on a daily basis. She told me, no one can ever say I was a person of greed. So I can say it's been a good ride aboard the cheese wagon. She made me promise that I would carry the fight for drivers' pay benefits to be raised as they so deserved. She wanted me not to grieve as she looked at me and smiled and said, I will be waiting on you at the gates of heaven. So with this said, Madam Chairwoman, school board members, and Dr. Benson, I urge you to please upgrade our wages and our benefits to a level that shows that we are respected, appreciated, and valued as professional employees of the Stafford County school system. Thank you for your attention to this matter.
Thank you.
Jacqueline? Okay.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Jacqueline Cornejo. I was born in Chile and raised in Chile. I was lucky to immigrate to this beautiful country, and I proudly became a USA citizen. Married with 3 children, and my oldest son, he's serving in the Coast Guard. And I had 2 daughters to attend in the county where I live and work. And I'm currently a school bus driver to a special need in Stafford County. I search a better opportunity in job security, and I began my training in a month in January 2015. It was not easy, the adapt and orientation, but with care and dedication, and every day had become easier. Being part of community of Spanish origin and Spanish spoken, I could contribute communication with parents and many students who on daily basis ride my bus, and the bus what I drive. Doing this job every day, the price of what I do grow. The passenger moved by us every day is more important. Our students, our children, and those who will be in charge and directing future of our country. Unfortunately, it's difficult to understand that the training and research that being invested in us perform in this novel job is dangerous and being lost. Seeing co-workers move to another more distant county and search for better salary to do the same duty. I will appreciate the effort of the county and increase resources for a better salary and benefits for workers who perform this amazing job in the Department of Transportation. And especially for me, what I coming from far away for United States. And usually I'm feel so lucky because this job, it was my dream. So and I'm gonna stay. I'm gonna be, you know, constantly with the staff what I need to have it done. And thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
The next 5 names on the list are James Perkins, Debbie Shuldowski, Donna Lawler, Leroy Richmond, and Glenda. If you all could line up as well in that order and then come up and to address the board. Thank you.
Dr. Benson and the board, thank you for your time and the ability to have a moment of your time to speak about Stafford County and what it means to be a bus driver in the county. I'm so pleased that so many of our fellow drivers and monitors showed up to really give you a sense and an idea of the quality of the people that you have driving for you and taking care of your children. I know it's easy to kind of gloss over maybe numbers, but you're going to see such a variety of people like Jackie, who just spoke for us. I actually was her trainer, and I'm going to tell you, she is super dedicated, worked really hard. And so hopefully you'll get a sense of where we come from and the diversity that we come from. Just to give you a little background about myself, I spent 20 years in the Marine Corps. One of the things that upon retirement is saying, what do I want to do next? How do I serve my community? What will be my next challenge and goal? The difficulty in that is finding that niche, finding what it is you like to do. I definitely found out here at Stafford County. I love training. I love driving children on the school bus. But the pay is an issue. It definitely is an issue. But it's something that we do from the bottom of our hearts. We really do. And that training and experience that I may have served in the military with, you get that as a benefit. But it's not just me. I mean, there's so many other drivers and trainers that do so much more as well that you may not get to see on a daily basis. For instance, I have 2 monitors that I actually work with because I drive special needs. These 2 ladies are incredible. One spent over 42 years in nursing and the other over 15 years in early childhood development. They have made me a better bus driver simply because of the fact of their experiences. They know so much more at times about what's going on with a child that I may not. And that's definitely added to our trips. It has added, value to the job. It has made it an experience that I could never trade for anything in the world. But we do need compensation for that. We need to feel like this is something that we can stay in and do, something that we can continue on and always feel proud of the fact that we are Stafford County transportation employees. One last thing I'd like to mention is on the benefit side of something that I found a little bit different and didn't understand at a particular time, and hopefully it may be something in your realignment and reconsiderations for benefits. I watched a young bus driver bring 2 children of her own to work every day for 3 years straight. Every single day. Well, it was raining, it was dark, cold, you name it. She brought those children to her bus. When she got to her bus, she then had 70 other children that she took to school every single day. Didn't call her. I could not remember a time when I did not see her. She worked really, really hard. Saved up quite a bit of sick leave, as you might imagine. However, when she became pregnant, she had to use every last bit of that sick leave in order to take time to take care of her newborn child. I think that's unfair. Something about that should be addressed at some point in time. It may not be in the current realignment and all that, or reorganization, but please look at moms that give up all their time for their children to take care of other children, and then at the end of the day, what do they have to show for it? Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Debbie Shuldowski. I'm a bus monitor with special needs children. I would like to say I definitely feel very blessed to work for the county and for what I do. I feel when I go home in the evening, I'm very proud of what I've done, and I look forward to coming to work every day. But that's why I want to speak on behalf of the monitors, because it is bus drivers and bus monitors together that make a team, especially with the special needs. Because without one, it's not without the other. And we have been told, I know drivers have, even regular mainstream drivers and special needs drivers, that, you know, it's been mentioned that they just sit there on the bus. Same thing with us monitors, that we just sit there and we don't do anything else. You know what? We love what we do, but for the love of it, cannot pay our bills, can't pay where I live. I want to stay where I'm at because I love my job. I love my coworkers. I feel very fortunate to have this job. I love the children. The rapport that you have with the children and what you have with the parents and with the school. When you go to the schools, you can't take that away from here. But please take that into consideration, that we all love what we do, but that's not paying what we need. And it's the drivers and the monitors that we are standing up for. Thank you, and God bless.
Thank you.
Of course, my phone went dead here. Hi, my name's Donna Lawler. I'm not as good as them. I have to read from my phone. Okay. I'm a state certified school bus driver trainer and a third-party DMV tester and a CPR instructor for the county. But above all, I'm a school bus driver, and I'm pretty proud of the job I and my fellow drivers and monitors do. I just wanted to say that I absolutely love driving my bus, especially when it's empty. Unfortunately, we can't always drive around with empty school buses. We do, however, drive what is known as the most precious cargo. These are your children, grandchildren, nieces, nephews. We are entrusted with thousands of children every day. Moms, dads, grandparents put their children and grandchildren on the bus and don't have to worry about who's driving them because they know they can trust the bus driver. I think trust is priceless, especially when you're trusting us to take care of your children and keep them safe. I've been doing this job for 16 years, and I'm making about $1 more than an hour than new drivers starting pay in surrounding counties. So I'm making $1 more than what they're making starting out, okay? And I've been doing it for 16 years. As a driver trainer, I see many people that come and train to be drivers and monitors, and I see many of these people go. So many people do not realize the huge responsibility we have as bus drivers and monitors for little pay. All we are asking for is a little compensation for this huge responsibility. We haven't had a decent raise in years, and we are always one of the last to be recognized for our efforts. So when sitting at your desks figuring out the budget, please keep the bus drivers and monitors in mind. And just a side note about the situation at Ferry Farm Elementary School yesterday. When our bus drivers were called to respond to the emergency, there was no questions asked. They had no idea. We weren't told what was going on. They dropped whatever they were doing and immediately responded, while other drivers that were already on the road were asking if they can help too. So, how much is dedication and trust worth to you? Thank you for your time.
Good evening, Board. Mr. Dr. Benson, Ms. Kitley, I'm out of the Garrisonville District. My name is Leroy Richmond. I'm a bus monitor for special needs, Head Start in particular. My driver had to leave because she has a family and have things to attend to at home. The driver of my bus, she's a weather reporter, she's a traffic control person, all through the radio. She's still a bus driver. My major concern is for the kids not to distract the driver. I've been trained in first aid. Every summer we go through a fit for duty. These things you don't know about. These things are abstract to each of you. You don't know about these things. But this is a part of my job, a part of my requirement to protect the kids. I was in Walmart not too long ago, and a young girl ran up to me and grabbed me. I had not seen this person in 4 years. A special need person, a person who was subject to seizures, a person who had a seizure. I was on that bus and had to administer the EpiPen. The parent of that child recognized me, and he thanked me 4 years ago. 4 years ago. From time to time, I'll see parents, they'll say, my kids called your name more than they called mine. And that's an amazing thing. I love what I do. My driver and I, we are a team. If we suspect something like child abuse in family, we'll address it. If we see we're in a situation where a kid may need something, will address it. This is Head Start. The smartest kids that go to Head Start ride bus 71. They ride my bus. And I will tell each and every one of them, you're going to be a doctor, you're going to be a lawyer. I will never, ever put any of them down. And when they're not there, I'm sad. When I'm not there, my driver is miserable. She is really, I can imagine, I can't use the word she's using, but I'm quite sure she's not too happy. There's a thing called a living wage. Dr. Benson, I must say something to you just for a second. As a teacher in mind development, special needs teacher, you're going to lose her. It's sad. It's sad that you're going to lose her. She said when she came to Stafford County, she took a $10,000 cut pay. 3 years now, she's been doing special needs. But unfortunately, she has to leave the county to go to a different county to make up the money she's missed. All we're asking for is a living wage. Go to the board, plead with them as we are pleading with you. See the importance of what each driver, each monitor does. It's not frivolous. It's not something to be taken for granted. It's important. So I just want you to remember, there's such a thing called a living wage, and we're not getting that. Thank you for your time.
Good evening. My name is Glenda Ash. I didn't write a speech or anything, but I was asked to come and speak up. I'm a monitor on Bus 11 for special need kids. I love those kids. I'm attached to those kids. I've helped those kids any way possible. I've been in a hardship for a very long time, but it's not about me because I love my job. I appreciate Ramona and my lead driver, Phyllis, everyone that's gave me a chance to come and work for Stafford County. I've been working with Stafford County for a year and a half, 2 years, but I told them I'm going to stick with them, and I want to be one of the ones that's going to retire and make a difference and have a purpose. I want to do a lot of things. I have 10 grandkids myself, 4 of them, 2 from my daughter, and my youngest daughter, she married someone with blended kids, and we just blended them all in together. So I claim them all. And Christmas and holidays, those things are important, but I sacrifice and I come to work every day. Every day that those kids get up and come to school, I get up and come to school very early in the morning. Me and my bus drivers, we've been a team. I work with probably all of the bus drivers in transportation, because when I got started, I was determined that I was going to jump on any bus that needed help. And I put in suggestions so we can do different things as an office, the whole office environment, so we could have things to come together, because it's just unity working with Stafford County. I've met some of the people here on the board. I've met them, and the principals and the teachers and the assistants in the schools, they're wonderful because they work with us when we work with the kids. And a lot of the disabilities that the kids have, you know, it's just they have a different way of learning. I had a different way of learning when I grew up. I was fortunate to go to school and graduate, and I was fortunate to go to early childhood development at Germanna. And I learned a lot of things, and I grasped hold of it because I knew that was my purpose in life to work. But it's been a very hardship for me trying, you know, salary-wise. I started at $9.43 an hour, and I'm at $9 and probably 67 cents an hour right now. It's not just about the money. It's just about fulfilling the job and being responsible and doing all we can to help those special need kids. And I was one of the ones, too, on Bus 11 to help with Furry Farms. But we just jumped right in there to get those kids safe, and that was the most important thing, because safety of those kids, it matters. And our lead drivers and our supervisors, they let us know that we matter coming to work. And I don't have to have a high title or anything like that, but all my kids on the bus know me as Miss Queen, because I try to just do everything that they need, serve them in any kind of way that they need to be served. I'm not perfect, but I have, you know, I learn. When we make mistakes, we learn. and we grow together. And transportation, Stafford County, it's a great place to work, and I'm going to be there for the long duration. And I just hope and pray that everyone could just, look at us, not just salary, but training, anything that they can help us do, to make our future better. Thank you.
Thank you. I have 4 more names on the list: George Schlegel, Lee Smith, Jim Mullenkamp, and Terry Wellborn. If you all could line up as well.
It's me again. As you can tell, we like to support each other. My name is George Schlegel. I'm a contracted sub, which means I have no idea where I'm going when I get to work in the morning. My bus starts at 5:30. I live in Orange County, so I make that drive every morning. When we cancel school, I'm already at the lot. So, the gentleman to my right is Eddie Nguyen. I'm also a driver trainer. I just trained this gentleman. I make 30 cents more an hour than he does. We are trained in first aid, diastat training. I do everything. I do special needs. I do Head Start. I do mainstream. It all depends on where they need me that day. And in training, we are now teaching new drivers have to learn how to parallel park a bus. That is new this year. I am a state certified trainer. Basically, we are not being paid what we should be. I've heard a couple comments about trash truck drivers. I did that for 18 years. It is very physical, very demanding on the body. Well, it was. Now they have a joystick. So, we are all CDL Class B drivers. A dump truck driver makes more than we do. They sit there and hit a switch. They carry rocks and dirt. We carry children. Their safety is our responsibility. A lot of times we're the first person they see in the morning. I just believe that we should be fairly compensated for what we do. I know we are at least $2 less than our neighbors up north, and at least $1.50 to our neighbors to the south who have nowhere near as many children as we do. And if we go to Quantico, that's ridiculous. That's DOD, that's well above the board. I have been here for several years. I was a trainer for waste management for 16 years. So I've been training a lot. Okay, our new hires are asked to do a whole lot more than we were when we got our license. And they are making $13 an hour, just like the rest of us are. So with that, I will go ahead and close because we all have to get up very early in the morning to deliver these kids. Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Leanne Smith. I also a bus driver for Stafford. I started in 2012. I actually came from Spotsylvania because I moved to Stafford. I drive a mainstream, which is a big transit bus. Everything that everybody has said, I'm not going to repeat it. It's all true. But I will tell you real quickly, I know I got 3 minutes, exactly what we do that some of y'all may not know. First thing in the morning, it could be pouring down rain, cold, wind blowing, whatever. We're out in that because we have to pre-trip our bus to make sure those buses are safe, check everything on them before we can get them on the road to pick them kids up. And we have to do that twice a day. When we go back out to pick them up in the afternoon, we're the ones that's out there. We come to work sick, which is not a good idea, but we're going to get sick with the kids on the bus anyhow that get on the bus sick. So, but I mean, we have to deal with kids chewing us out, parents chewing us out, but we're still back on that bus every single day. And we just deal with it. And you hear a lot of parents saying, I don't see how you do it. I envy you. I would never do your job, but you're the very one that's going to chew us out. I mean, it's a lot we have to deal with, but this stuff with having to go, there's so much that a lot of people don't understand what we have to do. You know, we get up underneath of it. We check our oil. We check it just like you do your own automobiles. There's a lot to do besides getting behind that wheel, picking kids up, dropping them off, and that's the end of the story. It's not. And for the pay, I can't believe that I left a higher paying job, but I moved here. And I will tell you this, and I don't care who all knows, I live off of less than $1,000 a month. Now you try and do that. Seriously, by the time everything comes out of my check, I bring home less than $1,000, and you tell me that how anybody can live off of that. But what am I doing? I'm up every morning, 4:30, and I get to that bus and do what I got to do for what little bit I get paid for. And I think in order to show consideration and respect for us, we need this. Everybody else is making more and do less up in these other counties. But look what we got to deal with, these back roads. We got to deal with deers, everything else running out in front of us. But Mr. Benson, twice in 2 of our meetings, you specifically said that you were going to see that you felt that we deserved it. It should be across the board. And we ain't seen nothing. That's been for the last 2 years. No disrespect for you, but I just feel that everything's being revolved around everything else but who the important people are. And that's the one that gets them kids to school and home safely. Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Chairman, School Board, Dr. Benson. I want to thank you for the opportunity to come here and speak before you tonight. This is my 2nd year as a special needs school bus driver for Stafford County. I drive students with various disabilities. You met my monitor earlier, Miss Queen. We are Bus 11. I want to tell you about a typical day on a special needs bus, except I can't, because there is no typical day on a special needs bus. There are some things that we do routinely. As was mentioned, we come out, we do a pre-trip of our bus, making sure it's safe and running correctly before we leave for the day. We drive a scheduled route. We pick up our children. We drop them off at their various schools, and in the evening, we take our children home. But just as routinely, there are things that come up during the day that we have to deal with, and we have to deal with, I would say, with clear minds, sometimes with patience. Sometimes we turn into counselors. Sometimes we turn into referees. One of the things Ms. Queen has always told me, based on an incident that we had on our bus where we had 2 students that were about to go to blows with one another, and Ms. Queen stepped in between the 2 of them. She said she gets paid to be a monitor, but she doesn't get paid to get hit. But those are some of the kinds of things that we deal with. We do have students getting sick on the buses, so we are also janitors. We are responsible for keeping our buses clean. We also deal on a regular basis with bus breakdowns and have to deal with those. We are also, it seems to me now as a bus driver, that we have a target on our buses. Other drivers, as soon as they see that yellow bus, they make it their mission in life to get out in front of us, sometimes at great hazard to what we are doing. I will tell you that despite the challenges, I love what I'm doing. but I find myself at an impasse. I sought this job as a supplemental income. I am a bivocational pastor, and I needed the additional income to take some of the burden off of my church. However, I find with the cost of living going up and everything increasing, that doing this job is becoming less and less tenable. And I find myself constantly thinking to the future and wondering how much longer I will be able to keep doing what I do. And I do love it very much. Some of the drivers that we have here are the best that there are, and we're losing them regularly because of the pay. Thank you.
Thank you. Mary?
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, Dr. Benson. I'm Terry Wellborn. I'm in the Falmouth District. I'm here tonight with my fellow bus drivers and monitors to speak to you about our budget concerns. As they have been telling you, we all love our jobs. It's a hard job, and I have people telling me all the time they would not do my job for any amount of money. We find houses that don't exist, houses that have no house numbers, i.e. the bus stop is by the fire hydrant. We pick up kids at the homeless shelter, hotels, motels, grandma's house, and various daycares. We get kids home who don't know their names or addresses. We drive down roads that are no bigger than some driveways. We have to watch out for the other guy and make sure all of our 50 kids are sitting down in case we have to hit the brakes. We have to deal with upset or angry parents because we got there too early or too late. And as Mrs. Fallon will find out tomorrow morning at 5:45, we are out there at the crack of dawn when it's 20 degrees outside inspecting our bus, warming it up for the kids. Our drivers do all of this for a starting pay of $13.29 an hour. Some fast food workers make more than we do. Prince William County, just a few miles up the road to the north, starts out at $16.02 an hour. Manassas City has a beginning salary of $18.63. Spotsylvania, just a few miles to the south, the starting pay for drivers is $15.29. So if I go 20 minutes in either direction, I can earn at least $2 more an hour. As a trainer, I've had drivers run red lights, stop signs, run over curbs, and speed. It is my job to teach, train, and then evaluate them. Not everyone can do this job. A driver's ed teacher can make as much as $26 an hour. I would like to see our driver trainers get a stipend for the training. Our special needs drivers and monitors have an added responsibility. Their students could have a life or death situation on the bus at any given moment. For these teams, the monitors are invaluable. They are CPR first aid certified. They have had diastat training. They get extra training on how to care for their students' medical conditions and what to watch for. They learn what works to calm them if they are upset. They keep an eye on and monitor the students so the driver can drive. They do all this for a starting pay of just $9.67 an hour. A cafeteria hostess in our schools who hands out napkins and opens milk cartons makes $10.72 an hour. Starting pay for monitors in Prince William County is $13.41 an hour. Manassas City starts out at $14.98 an hour. In comparison, a UPS driver can make $28.06 an hour, while driving a garbage truck pays $18.43 an hour. A waste management advertisement I recently saw said that driving a trash truck is a valued, secure, professional career. Why isn't driving a bus looked upon as treated as a professional career that is valued? To many parents, we are the face of Stafford schools. Every year we are told how important we are because of our responsibility for the safety of up to 75 kids at a time. Please show us we're valued and compensate us with a living wage. Thank you.
We've gotten through all the names on the list. If you would also like to address the board, please line up at the podium. You'll want to give your name and address, and after you finish, if you will sign the clipboard that is behind the podium. So anyone who wishes to address the board, if you all could line up, that would be great.
Hi, my name is Melanie Amos, and with all these bus drivers, I'm a Stafford County bus driver. I'm a parent. I'm also a taxpayer just like y'all and everything else. But you know, when it comes to the living, because they done pretty much said everything to every wages and stuff. But when I first came here, I've been here like 9 years, and when I first came here, I came from Caroline. I drove a bus for 5 years at Caroline, and then I moved down here. We got a step wage, we got a cost of living raise, plus a raise. Well, now I'm bringing home less, after everything's out of my check, I'm bringing home less than $1,000. Actually, I'm bringing home less than $600 after everything's taken out. So how do you expect anybody to live on that? When I'm sitting here and I'm trying to raise a family, I'm also trying to pay the costs of the dues at school. I'm trying to pay the costs of all the stuff that I got a senior this year, and I'm trying to pay all these costs. How you expect me to pay them? Because we don't have the cost of living raise. We don't have the raises and all this other stuff, and y'all, and just like, okay, I do get to bring my bus home, and when a lot of people move now, they try to get you in central location. You should be able to take your bus when you move, as long as it's not that far. You should be able to take it back home. They don't have parking spaces any other where, so you should be able to take it back home. That way you're in the vicinity. As long as you're in Stafford County, you should be able to take that bus back home. And whether you move, don't, grandfathered in, not grandfathered in, or whatever, you should be able to take that bus back home. You should be able to move it back and come back to your location, and especially, I have grandchildren. I'm glad that y'all give me the rights to take my grandchildren with me. That way my kids, my son don't have to pay anything like that. Plus, also, you never know what your contracted wage is. I'm under 2 contracted wages right now. I don't even know which one I'm under. The first one I was under 1, and then they changed it. Now they're changing it back. They're changing it to something else. I have no idea what my contracted wage is. So, because they changed my route, because somebody calls in and tells them they overloaded, and so they put them on me, and then that put me overloaded. Well, then they come up and tell me that I was getting there too late at the one stop, and it come up to the point that I was getting there 5 or 10 minutes after after my route said. But yet, in the same token, they said the computer changed, and I wasn't aware of that. They couldn't show me what time I was supposed to get there. But yet, with the contract with the route that they gave me, I was getting there within my 5-minute curtain. So what I'm trying to say, we all need the living raise. We all need the living raise, and we all need to be able to take their buses back home. That way, it can secure our buses instead of us having to travel so much. The ones that can take them home. The ones that can't, I understand, they still have to go to central locations. But the ones that can take them home, they should be able to still take them home to go back to the same place. But, and thank you, but still, the cost of living, the step and all that, I'm under step. Because I've been driving for 14 years. I'm under step.
If you could wrap up, please.
All right. Thank you very much, and hopefully everything, goes well. But, it is that we should be able to get that. Thank you.
Thanks. Good evening. My name is Amy Ridge. I was not prepared to come up here this evening. I didn't have anything prepared, and I am completely nervous. My insides are shaking right now talking in front of all these people, so bear with me. I have been with Stafford County now. I was a monitor several years ago, working with special needs students, and I just came back towards the beginning of this school year to drive mainstream students in Stafford County. I cannot begin to tell you, any of you who do not work directly with students, how many different hats we wear. As everyone else said, we are mechanics. We provide first aid, we provide counseling, we wipe tears, snotty noses, we provide comfort, we enforce the anti-bullying policy, we are friends, we are helpers. Any hat that you can imagine, that a teacher, a parent, a friend, we are all that, day in and day out. I came back to Stafford County because 3 years ago, adopted a child out of foster care. I do not have any biological children. She came from quite a disastrous situation with her biological family. I make more money from Louisa DSS for an adoption subsidy than I make in an entire month working for Stafford County. I think that's sad. You know, I'm basically getting more money in child support than I'm getting working for an entire month. And like I said, there's no way to explain unless you're out there in the cold, in the rain, in the snow, like so many of these people are every single day. And we're so short-staffed right now. So in the event of an emergency, we're running here, there, and everywhere, you know, sometimes with no notice whatsoever. So I just ask that you guys reconsider your position on this, and let's push, 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 because just as well as everyone else, we're not up here with, you know, suit and tie, fancy title, anything like that, but we're here for the love of the children, the love of our job, the love of our community. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Could you remember to sign in, please, or sign on the clipboard? Sorry.
Yes, ma'am.
Madam Chairman, Board, Dr. Benson. I'd just like to reiterate that what we do is really an awesome responsibility and it's also an awesome job. I've been driving for 2 years, special needs, and you know, I had no idea I would fall in love with the kids like I have, and I really look forward to seeing them every day. They look forward to seeing me. Just this afternoon, one of our special needs kids who cannot speak or hear was brought out by 2 people under each arm to my bus. And once on the bus, he's hugging my monitor. And after the other kids are off the bus, he's sitting there with my monitor playing on a computer pad, doing better than she can do on it, and laughing and happy. And, you know, we make a difference in his life. And, you know, there's been a groundswell across this nation to raise the minimum wage, and it's getting a lot of support. And this is for people that have no skills and very little responsibility. I feel like we're several tiers above that. And we should, you know, get a pay that's commensurate with what we do. And that's pretty much all I had to say. I recommend that Dr. Benson's budget have great consideration and hope we can get it approved.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Ramona Crane. I am the coordinator of safety and training for Stafford County Public Schools, the Transportation Department. I hadn't planned on speaking this evening. I wanted to allow my drivers and monitors to come forward and give you their ideas and their thoughts, but I wanted to take a moment just to give you a brief background, if you will, of what a new hire goes through in order to become a school bus driver in the state of Virginia. First of all, they are required to have a commercial driver's license with a CDL, with a Class B, a minimum of Class B with a P&S endorsement, which is a passenger and school bus endorsement. That's not an easy thing to come by. It's a difficult exam that they have to take at the DMV. If they fail it 3 times, they're on a lifetime ban, and they are not allowed to ever take the test again unless they go through a driver training course. So there's a lot of pressure on them when they go to the DMV to take that test, because it's a 3 strikes you're out rule. They are subject, once they get that CDL, learner's permit, then they have to go out and drive a 15-ton piece of machinery. And many of them come to us. I know, I interview them, and they tell me the largest thing they've ever driven is a minivan. So this is a whole different ballgame for them. They learn how to maneuver that vehicle. They learn how to parallel park it. They learn how to do so many things with that big piece of machinery. Their driving records are carefully monitored. Once they pass the exam and become a CDL driver, I have to notify the DMV. So whether they are driving a school bus or their own personal vehicle, there are serious consequences for any kind of violation of traffic law. If they are convicted of any kind of offense, it goes down on their record. They are not allowed to take driver improvement courses versus taking a conviction. They have to take a conviction. Their responsibility, they're professional drivers, and it's very difficult for them to, it's a much more responsible position in order to keep their driver's license in good standing. Every year they have to do an annual physical. If they do not pass that physical, they're not eligible to drive the school bus. They lose their job. They lose their means of employment, their means of their livelihood. So they have to monitor their health issues. They have to monitor their driving record. They have to be very mindful of how they live their lives outside of the job in order to maintain their position. So it's an extremely responsible position. Our monitors and drivers are all taught with CPR and first aid. They're also taught to give the EpiPen should a child need that life-threatening, that life-saving medicine, because they're out on the road by themselves. There's no school nurse out there with them. There's nobody out there but them. They're also trained how to give a Diastat medication. And for those of you who don't know, that is rectal Valium. They're trained how to give suppositories aboard a school bus to save a child's life. And we actually had a driver monitor team that had to do that to save a child's life aboard a school bus. So it is an incredibly responsible job. It is a job that you just don't walk in and get. It is a journey to be certified and to become a driver. So I asked you to think of that when you consider your budget for their salaries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Phyllis Burton. Like Ramona, I hadn't planned on speaking, but I am so proud of my drivers. I'm Phyllis Burton, lead driver for Transfer Special Programs. So a lot of my drivers and monitors are here, and I'm so proud of them for the way they spoke up. And Special Programs is just a special area. It's just a very special area. Our children are special. It comes with a very high responsibility. And our drivers and monitors are so dedicated, as am I in my position. I've had my CDL since 2000. And I have a son in college, and I need more money. But I just wanted to bring it to you all's attention on just the level of the people, and I believe you saw that, the hearts of the people that have come up here. And that's where we are, where our hearts, they're with our children. We want the best for our children. We want them to get to school safe and get them home safe. And we just want to do that with a fair wage. So we're just pleading to you all to think about every message, every face, every yellow shirt. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to come tonight and talk to you about the concerns that we have. 2 years ago, I'm sorry, I'm Deborah Pope. I'm a school bus driver for Head Start, but I also have the opportunity to sub, and that's what I wanted to talk to you about. 2 years ago, at 54, I decided to become a school bus driver, or at least try. There are 5 people in my neighborhood that are school bus drivers, so it's amazing, and it's just 2 cul-de-sacs or my neighborhood. We have amazing trainers. We have amazing everybody. We're like a cohesive team. We may not all get along at all times, but and being able to sub, I drive on different buses, special needs, and I love my Head Start route. But it can be difficult. Like they've all said, we get up very early, you know, harsh weather. But it's a blessing. It's something that I never dreamed I would enjoy like I do. And it's a challenge, but we thank you, and we just ask that you keep in mind everything that we've asked tonight. Thank you so much.
If there's anybody else who wants to speak, please go ahead and line up if you could. Go ahead and speak first and then sign at the end. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Carol Metamar, George Washington District. And I actually, you guys know me, it must be budget season in Stafford County, the time of the year where lots of people line up and try to convince you that their job is important. I know you care, I know you think their job is important, and I pray I live to see the day where you guys are the ones singing their praises and talking about all the wonderful things they do instead of them coming before you year after year asking you to pay them what they're worth and to value their what they're doing. As you know, I was one of the 267 that said, see ya. Within a few weeks of doing that, I had offers to the north, south, east, and west, all making more than I would at Stafford County Public Schools. And also being valued from the very first FaceTime with all of those other locations. I have to say, I was just blown away at the way that they talked about their school system and how they did things and how they valued their employees. And I was picky about where I went. I'm going to tell you, as a special ed teacher and a math teacher, I knew I had options. And I knew I could afford to be picky. And I wanted to go to the place where was going to be the best fit. So I want you to know that I called up the employees and said, you know, tell me about this place, tell me about your school, tell me about your climate, tell me about professional development, tell me about all of those other things. Compensation being the top of the list, of course, I could look that up very easily, and they, you know, were all toting that. But I also wanted to know about all those other things that Dr. Benson mentioned earlier when he was talking about his budget. Those things are important. Those are what make life comfortable. Your bus drivers just gave you some subtle things that would make their life more comfortable. Let them take their bus home, making sure that they can bring their kids on the bus, you know, making sure that there's enough of them to go around, training them, you know, giving them the opportunities for advancement. Those are things that matter to people when you're talking about budget and making salary decisions. So, I guess I just need to point out that there's $13 million that we've talked about, 8.3 from last year and 4.6 or something from this year. That's $13 million that you've budgeted to salaries, and you have a string of people year after year begging you for compensation. Something has to change about that, and I can be really frank and honest about it now, and I don't have to go to school tomorrow and worry about what I have to say. But I do have a passion about that. My children go to school here too, and you know, you have amazing employees, and they're leaving in droves, just like myself, and you're going to lose more who are just waiting to hear you guys sing the praises of your employees from that seat instead of having to hear it from this side of the aisle trying to convince you to compensate them. So I just want to say, pay them, train them, make this a place that you want to come and you want to strive to live here and thrive here and work here. That's what Stafford County community needs. Thank you.
Carol, did you sign in? Carol, did you sign in? Sorry.
Hello, Madam Chair, School Board District, Dr. Benson. As a few people, I wasn't planning on saying anything. I'm here to support my wife. She's a lead driver. I'm here in Stafford County. I am a business person here in the county. I'm the general manager of the Courtyard by Marriott in Stafford, Quantico, Virginia. And, you know, and I'm hearing people talk. I know what it is to hire people. I got people that I hire at my hotel that makes more money than these drivers. And just listening to folks, I get the feel that the drivers are an afterthought, that the county has grown so fast and things have moved, but they're still standing still. In good decency, there's absolutely no way that these folks should be paid the money that they're paying when the counties around you are paying so much more. And even with my company, I have people in my company that make more than they do in other areas, and we have over 200 and something hotels nationwide because we're in Virginia. We might not be in Northern Virginia, but the way people commute and whatnot, we have to take that in consideration when we try to retain and good help. It's just, you know, it's about time, I think, that the board and the county stops talking about it and be about a change for these drivers that are trying to raise kids and make a living here. I hear these numbers thrown around and these schools going up, and how are these folks getting there? We talk about these great evidences of these nice buildings and these wonderful learning centers, but how are they getting transported? How are they getting there? What would there be if you didn't have drivers getting students there? And you talk about turnover. Well, have we ever done a study? How much money are we losing on turnover? Maybe if we paid a little bit more, retained employees, maybe we wouldn't have the turnover. So what you bring in the front door is going out the back door. You know, you have to think about that. Do you guys do studies? What is the turnover percentage rate for bus drivers? Does anybody know? How many bus drivers are you losing a year? I said we put it up there for the teachers. Where is the turnover for the bus drivers? You need to think about that. And when you put numbers up and you're not including some of the most valuable people that transport people, what is the message that you're sending? What is the culture that you're sending here in the county for your bus drivers? I didn't see anything about any bus drivers, nothing whatsoever. Is that the message? Is that the culture? You know, and we talk about culture and we talk about this, but transporting kids, and my wife has been doing this since 2000. She's been doing this for 2000. I've watched her. She started driving the bus when my youngest son was in the first grade. He's now a sophomore at Bluefield College. I've seen her day in, day out, get up every single day, not miss work. I would bet to say she's probably missed 2 days in 7 years. 7 years. So I just think we just need to relook and consider what you've got here and how the county is spending their money. And I'm quite sure there's enough of it to spread around, but it's just going to take a focus on you guys doing that. Thank you.
If there's no one else, I'm going to go ahead and close public comment. I believe that I have a request for the board for a short break, 7 minutes. Everybody, 7 minutes. Be back. So, board committee reports, if any board members have reports that they would like to, can you just put your hand up so I can just call on whoever and we can just, Mr. Hirons, can you start us?
Yeah, Fab.
Yeah,
You want me to
go ahead.
report? Do you
Sure.
want, one of you want to take it?
Go ahead.
We have a meeting tomorrow with the Board of Supervisors, Fab, a joint meeting at 4:30. 4:30 at the ABC conference room over in the Administration Center regarding CIP.
Excuse me, any other board committee reports from members? No? All right, we will move on to 5.01, board member comments. Mr. Hirons, you want to start us there as well?
Well, they all scooted because they have to be up early, but I did want to say thank you to all the bus drivers who came out. It is really important that we do hear from all of our staff. And you know, bus drivers, all their stories are as valid as every other grouping of staff we hear. For myself, you know, I find bus drivers to be really caring. They've always made a point to take care of my children. I appreciate that. And when I was a kid, I don't recall my kindergarten or first grade teacher's name, but I remember my bus driver back then, Mr. Charlie. So the bus drivers are a really important asset, and I hope they recognize that our budget is improving. Our budget process is improving significantly. I think we're going to be able to help get to a point where we're going to be able to provide some of the improvements they're looking for. Other than that, I'd like to welcome Ms. Fallon to the board with us. I've been asking her if she really wants to sit next to me. She hasn't kicked me yet, although Miss Healy used to always kick me. Kidding.
Well, I give you a break and move down this end. Do something different.
Well, she doesn't have to be that AG Wright contingent, so, so much better. And then the one other thing that I had an opportunity to take part in late in December, I don't think I've had an opportunity to report on, was I was asked to speak to the inaugural class of the Elementary Honor Society at Conway Elementary School. It was really cool to do. I've been the guest speaker for a high school class, which I really had a lot of honor in doing. I really appreciated that, but it was really interesting to talk to fifth graders about honor society and what their future is going to hold as they be recognized for the academic and service. So that's all I had.
Ms. Fallon, I'll come to you last. How about that? I'll let everybody go first. So, Ms. Egan.
Well, I just want to say Happy New Year to everybody. Looking forward to this year. I also want to say congratulations to a few teachers who have the distinct honor of being selected by their peers as Teachers of the Year. Ms. Swiger at Stafford L., Ms. Musso at Stafford Middle School, and Ms. Knott at Brook Point High School. So congratulations to you guys. Welcome, Mrs. Fallon. Glad to have you next to me. And just one announcement, the Math Expo here is scheduled for January 23rd, 10 to 2 at Dixon Smith Middle School. That's it.
Ms. Kidby.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A couple things. I had an opportunity to go to North Stafford High School along with Dr. White and to participate in their accreditation process. Wonderful process. I learned a lot being involved in that. Each of our schools have to go through that process periodically, and it's quite lengthy. It comes from the state, and there's dignitaries that come in that represent the state and evaluate all aspects of the school. And North Stafford, of course, was shining. And Dr. White and I enjoyed our morning at North Stafford High School. I also wanted to bring everyone's attention. Dr. Clark is starting something new, right? This is out of your group?
I didn't. Our special education PTA did.
Yeah. They're having a fundraiser breakfast at Park Ridge Elementary School. It's January 30th. Great breakfast. You can get online and pay with PayPal. It's only $5, and you get a couple, 3 breakfasts for your $5, I believe. And it should be a great fundraiser. The purpose of this is to raise money for mini grants that actually get given to special ed teachers, is that correct? So that they can better supply their classrooms and meet the needs of the students. So this is a great opportunity for people to get involved. Also, out of the governor's office this morning, Governor McAuliffe announces an education and workforce legislative package that he's bringing forward. I'm sure it's going to go through lots of iterations if and when it ever passes. But I invite folks to take a look at it. It's got some very interesting things. And I believe that Stafford County is right on track as we look at our opportunities down the road to partner with Germanna and some of the things that we can do in that area. Also, if it were to pass, again, this is proposed legislation, we would be able to use folks in our community to teach part-time as CTE teachers in their skilled profession, even though they may not have a teacher certification, which would be a wonderful opportunity for us as well. We have some amazing folks out in the community that could be of great benefit to the schools. So I'm looking forward to seeing whether or not this legislation makes it through our House and our House of Delegates and our Senate. That's all I have.
Thank you. Ms. Healy.
Thank you. I want to thank Mrs. Kidby for her leadership over the past 2 years. I know it was trying at times to work with me, but I really admire you and everything you put into it, because I know how much time it takes and the dedication, and I think Stafford County Public Schools has really benefited from your leadership. And I'm looking forward to Ms. Hazards. She knows what she's getting into, having been there as the vice chair, and Ms. Egan as well. And Ms. Fallon, welcome to the board. I know when you first come in January and you get hit by the budget, it's kind of like being rolled over one of the buses. It's like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? But I think Dr. Benson has us on a good course, and things are certainly in much better order than they've been in many years past. I do have a question there, Dr. Benson, if maybe in one of your updates or whatever, we could get some more information about this chart with the medians that you gave us, because based on the information coming forth from the bus drivers and the monitors, I couldn't quite correlate the salaries they're talking about to what's on this chart. So as we go into the budget season, I'd like to get a better feel for that. And I know Mr. Sudduth has left us, but I just kept looking at him in the audience, and he looked like that proud father, you know, with all his wonderful employees coming forth and talking about their dedication and commitment. And I just really admire everyone that spoke to us tonight, as well as the bus drivers and monitors as well. They are the first point and the last point that our students have in contact, with our schools. And our schools are a team. It's the bus drivers, the people that help, the paras that are out there getting the children off the bus when they get into school. It's the paras, the custodians, of course, the nutrition people, and the nurses. Everybody, works together. So, yeah, I do want to say thank you to everyone that came out tonight, because knowing their schedule, I see them on the road. I don't get out till close to 6 in the morning, but they're out there driving, and I can't imagine parallel parking a bus. I mean, oh my gosh, I know a car is hard enough to get in around our little roundabout outside there, but thank you to everyone for what you do for us. And Dr. Clark, if they need help with the pancakes, I actually learned how to flip pancakes from Mrs. Kale and her crew at Garrisonville. Hopefully you'll have better electricity than we did, because we kept flipping the switches with those griddles. But seriously, that's how I learned how to cook pancakes. So if they need some help, I live real close to Park Ridge, and I'd be happy to come over on the 30th. Thank you.
Mr. McCoskey.
I just wish I had a personal cook, because like you did, like growing up, and now that you could flip pancakes. Anyway,
Can't do much else, but
that was good. Hey, thanks to Ms. Kidby for 2 years of hard work, putting up with our antics. And my antics, and I'll own it.
they're going to make us move.
I'll own it. So, yeah. Anyway, so good job, and it's hard work, and thanks so much, and welcome to Holly and Irene. I know you'll do great things. Ms. Fallon, welcome to the board. You're going to do a super job, and you're sitting next to Irene, and in between Mr. Hirons and Irene. So you just kick them,
I think she's leaving.
Oh, she's going to leave you to this while you'll sit next to Kidby. So Miss Kidby's on one side, Mr. Hirons is on the other, and then but you still got, you got the reach to Bruce right there. Yeah, slide notes down to Bruce.
Emily just told me she didn't want to sit next to me because I wasn't any fun.
Well, I'm not going to disagree with that. So I've already said thank you. So there you go.
Look where I am.
All right, I don't want to get you guys giggling. So. And the last thing I just want to say, because it's late, Ferry Farm had an issue yesterday, and so a threat. And I'm just so proud of the staff of Ferry Farm, and Dixon Smith received the Ferry Farm kids, and the bus drivers did get there on time. I got Miss Martinez is in the audience now, and Bob Freeman. And then, of course, on the receiving end, Lisa Pasigli and her crew. But, the brains of the operation, usually when it comes to things like that, is sitting right there. All right, I know Bob will pinch me for that. But they did great work, and the teachers kept the kids. And, I have 2 kids in the school system. So, of course, and I was home that day. And so I got the call. And but the long story short is the kids came home, and we said, so how was school today? And did anything happen spectacular? And they're like, no, we just got on a bus ride and went over to another school, and, And so, and that's what you want. You want the kids to, hey, so they did it calmly, professionally, and so we really couldn't ask for anything more from not just our staff, but the police, the Stafford County Police, and the fire and the emergency response personnel, and of course the staff up here at the headquarters. Just a wonderful job. So I'd like to thank everybody for that, and let's hope we don't have too many more of those. And that's it.
I'm so glad I get to go last. I just want to thank everybody for being so welcoming and inviting and helping me along the way, get used to things and get some background information. I'm not sure how much longer we'll keep Roberta if I keep bugging her, the 47 emails a day, getting to her. But everybody's been great. The office staff's been great. Dr. Benson's been wonderful. I am looking forward to my bus ride tomorrow morning, although it's going to be cold and very early. And dark. And dark. Okay, no more. And rainy. But thank you, everybody, and I'm looking forward to.
Again, I'd like to also welcome Ms. Fallon and welcome this new board as we move together and work as a board. Dr. Benson came tonight, presented us with a plan as early as I've ever seen one. I was not kidding about saying we have time. Not tons of time, we do have some limitations, but I think we have that opportunity to analyze and look into that. I'd like to thank you all for allowing me this privilege to serve as chair for this year. I know that we can move this board and this county forward when we work together and we listen. I found an interesting quote, which I'll share with you all, and I thought it was interesting. This morning, some of us were quoted in the paper about the women election, and it was about leadership. And I found this great quote, and it said, "Leadership is about capacity, the capacity of leaders to listen and observe, to use their expertise as a starting point to encourage dialogue between all levels of decision-making, to establish processes and transparency in decision-making, to articulate their own values and visions clearly but not impose them. Leadership is about setting and not just reacting to agendas, identifying problems, and initiating change that makes for substantial improvement rather than managing change." I think that's something that we'll be able to do as a board. I think that we are making great strides, and I think we will continue to build on that this year. We are excited. We'll see if I can really pull off. I know that there is a 5K walk or run that I believe that Stafford County Public Schools as a organization is going to join in, and it would be great. We can all walk or run. I know which one Dr. Benson will be doing. And we have a wonderful team leader as our clerk who will be able to help us. So I hope you all may think about April 16th, and I'm sure you'll hear more about that later. I will not be leading the team, but I may walk it. So anyway, thank you all. We look forward to a great year, and we miss Dr. Benson. Your comments.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I want to echo the sentiments of the board in terms of the feedback and stories that we heard this evening from our bus drivers. They are an important part of our team, and we need to continue to work to improve our compensation and recognition models within the organization. But we also need to do it in a way that's sustainable moving forward, so we don't ever have to go back. And it's probably going to mean we need to look at different kinds of compensation models, and not perhaps the way that we've always done it, because I think that has kind of prevented us at times from moving forward. So that being said, we're going to do that. I realize that we may not do it as fast as some folks would like us to, but we're going to do it. So welcome, Ms. Fallon, and Ms. Kidby. It's been a pleasure working with you as chair. So thank you for everything you've done in the last couple of years.
With that, we will move on to our consent agenda. Do I have a motion regarding consent?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right. Does that include items 7.01, 02, and 03? Is that correct?
Yes, sorry.
All right, no? All right. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes on consent agenda. Next, we move on to information items. 8.01 is for information that we will be looking to approve in the future, the 2016-17 Program of Studies Middle School Course Catalog. I believe that we have probably Dr. Quinn and probably Dr. White, potentially, on this one. I will open without having sort of an intro. Are there specific questions regarding this agenda item?
I just have a quick question about, let's cut to the chase.
Yeah.
What's different?
Right, right.
What's changed since last year?
It's great. Start there.
Yep.
Good evening, Madam Chairman and board members, Dr. Benson and Ms. Egan. Basically, with the, we put language in this year that was a little different from last year in terms of program and the model for world languages, where we'd have Spanish at every school. And also we had indicated in that section of the course catalog that we would also offer one other language from the languages that we offer in the school district based on several different options, one being dual certification, and we're looking at some other models as well, either additional traveling teachers of world language who might serve those schools, but primarily we're trying to focus on any additional positions that we put in a priority, human resources putting a priority on identifying teachers who could come in and teach a you know, some core content area plus a world language, or some elective area plus a world language. So that would, that's spelled out clearly in that section, more so than we've done in the past, because of the new model of how we offer world languages in middle school. And then also we have a section on our exploratory, our IE time that we have in our middle schools, and some of the focus and the purpose and rationale for those experiences for our children.
Okay. As you know, I have a large contingency of folks who are concerned about parity in our middle schools, and I know with this year we weren't able to, some of the schools were able to afford a Spanish class plus another, whether it was dual certification purposes or traveling teachers or what have you. What they're going to ask me is, what are we going to try to do to level that playing field, taking away from having dual certification teachers and having availability of the traveling teachers? How are we going to level that playing field to get all of those opportunities across all of our middle schools?
Just to piggyback on what Dr. Quinn said, Roxana McCarthy is working on possible plans, options that we can introduce into the middle schools so that each one will have Spanish plus one other language. And it may mean that we look for dual certified teachers, but also, if we can, looking at possibly bringing some itinerant teachers from the high school, if the schedule permits, to come down and teach another class, so that each school will have Spanish and one other. And that's the big focus that we're looking on. That's one of the things that Dr. Benson said he wanted to make sure that we had available for next year. So we're working on that plan as we speak.
So I know that we looked at doing that for, like, I'll use my school for instance, Stafford Middle School, looking at bringing a teacher from Brook Point to Stafford Middle, and it wasn't possible, and we missed the opportunity to have a dual certified. I guess it wasn't out there. So are we going to take steps to kind of correct that for next year?
Yes, and we are communicating right now. We had our high school principals meeting this morning, and we shared with them what the plans were, and so that we could work in their schedule to make some of those options possible, and so they're aware of that. So started early to make sure that we deliver.
I'm very glad to hear that, and I'm sure my folks are too.
And it will be included in the program review update that we do in the next month, within the next month. So.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, can I piggyback on that?
Mr. Harris.
All languages are listed in the course catalog, I believe, at all schools. What's the methodology we're using to determine that potential second language at schools?
It's going to be based on the resources available. So we couldn't say with any certainty that, say, French would be at Drew Middle School or what have you. So we're going to see what our resources offer. So we will have Spanish and then one other, and that's why we're saying it like that. We want to phrase it as one other so that individuals understand that we are trying to get another option there. It may not be French at a certain school or German, but we are trying to get them one other language opportunity.
As students are signing up for their classes for next year, what are they going to be? What's their experience going to be? Is it going to be, I want to take a foreign language?
They'll have alternates, second and third choices in terms of world languages.
Okay, but we're not going. We potentially aren't going to know until summer what world languages we're going to be offered at any particular schools, right?
We may not know until we know the high school schedules, and then also because of proximity. For example, a Mountain View teacher would only really be able to service A.G. Wright, middle school. So we're looking at proximity as well what are the availability of teachers, and then what other resources we can bring to bear.
Right. One other question. Spanish 2 is still listed. I thought we were going to limit foreign language to 8th graders only, and this would be, the current year would be the last year we'd have any kids who took Spanish in 7th grade.
I'll have to get back with Ms. McCarthy to find out exactly where we are there, but I think you're right. That one probably needs to come out, so.
Yeah, I think if that's true, we need to remove that.
Okay.
Ms. Healy?
I like what you're saying about the intention. However, I would be more comfortable if we make a commitment to have that second language offered. I know, I mean, the intention is that it's going to be offered, but this says, as duly certified staffing is available, which certainly leaves the door open to say that there may be no staffing available, therefore, sorry, you lose out. Because I share the concern that Ms. Egan expressed about parity. I mean, Dr. Benson committed to this board and this community that we are going to have parity among our middle schools. And the foreign language program, I believe, is an important area that we need to address. I'm also have some concerns about basing what we're offering based on who's available to teach it rather than the interest of the students. I know we're not going to be able to meet all the interest, but I would prefer that we try to find staff who can teach what the students want to take rather than offer to the students what we can find a teacher to teach. Recognizing that this is an elective and it's something that we're doing, I'm glad we're going to have Spanish everywhere. In fact, I start teaching Spanish to K through 2 on Thursday at Garrisonville. Oh my gosh. It's going to be fun. So if you need an extra Spanish teacher, I could maybe, brush up on my French. No, you wouldn't pay me anything, so there wouldn't be too high expectations, right? I took a lot of Latin though, so I could help you out there. But anyway, I think we really need to find out what the students are interested in, and it may vary from school to school, and then try to meet those needs to the extent that we can. But we need to make a commitment that we shall find teachers to teach this other language, not that we may or will.
One of the options that's out there, and I don't know if we can realistically do it though, is to hire itinerant teachers for the division that would travel, just to the middle schools and provide that world language, but there's a cost associated with that, so we have to kind of see what we can do. But we have put that as one of our possible options. We just need to see if we can support it.
And I believe the scheduling process that, with this being approved this month and then middle school starting with their guidance counselors working on that in February, we'll have those numbers. So that comes first, and then in terms of that driving the demand and trying to match that with finding the teacher with that certification. That would be the sequence.
Ms. Fallon?
I have a question. I think that the languages are great, but those are kind of limited to kids who reach a certain level and achieve a certain level in their English classes. I'm concerned about the other electives that we offer in the schools, and in the catalog where it says that, it's based on the teacher's skills and availability. I also have kids over at Stafford Middle, and I know that has been another problem. Again, I think the languages are great, but what happens to the kids that don't qualify for languages? Does that mean, I know that was another one of our issues. At some schools, they have guitar lessons and yoga as electives, where if you've not hired someone trained to do that, then we don't offer those electives at other schools.
Those are actually, those other classes, all of our middle schools have the same core elective classes that they teach. All of those others are considered I&E, exploratory, intervention exploratory. So those are going to be different across the county with regard to teacher interests and what they have to offer. So those are, are different by design.
So they would only be offered in our flex time, they would, all the
Exactly,
electives
Right, they're
otherwise
non-credit
are-
bearing
Okay.
compared to the other electives that are in the catalog.
Right.
And all of those that are in catalog are offered at all of our schools.
And that doesn't matter on enrollment, that would,
That does not, because that is something that each school is going to put out there based on their teachers' interests and also what they think their student body may like to participate in.
Ms. Gibby, did you?
You mentioned reading and content areas have been added to advanced academic individual support and enrichment opportunities section to provide extra reading support. Can you talk to me a little bit about what that would look like?
Those would be primarily driven by student needs. The reading courses are for students with special needs primarily. In those 3 grade levels, reading into content areas would be an elective area where the state allows us to offer that.
As an enrichment opportunity?
As an enrichment or elective opportunity, and you don't have to necessarily have certification in reading or English to teach that in the content area. So it's a special category of a reading program.
Let me make sure I understand. It would be an elective then? It wouldn't take the place of an English class
No,
per se?
no.
Okay. What a nice opportunity, though, particularly for some of our more advanced kids that would like to really delve into some things in a specific content area. It's really a great idea. I
It
appreciate
would
that.
focus on the interest of the adolescent
Yeah,
reader.
absolutely, absolutely. Thank you.
Just a final comment. I was saying to Ms. Kidby, I was saying that initiative that she talked about with the governor, it was only CTE. I was hoping that languages would be in there too, that we might be able to bring in native speakers to teach some of these languages. But that would be an idea going forward, so something to think about. As I've heard, we are questioning the Spanish 2, how interest will be gauged for languages. What are the options that we could do, and maybe the differencing of costing among how we could teach these the most efficient way is what I've heard. Is there anything else to be added?
And
Sorry.
making sure that we offer that second language at every one of our middle schools. That's important to me. If we're going to offer it at one, we need to offer it at all of them, whatever it takes.
So I think those are the areas when we come back and see this in 2 weeks.
Are you suggesting that?
Well, I think that we can fit it in within the budget that we have. I mean, we have certain funds and we have certain classes, and whether it's hiring an itinerant or hiring full-time, I mean, itinerant would save us money because what do we pay? 40% for benefits. You know, we may be able to save some money there.
Yeah.
So I just think it's, if we're going to say we're going to have parity, then we need to have parity. And we didn't have it this year, but it was brought to our attention, and I think it was some of Ms. Egan's constituents came and spoke to us at the board, and they brought it to our attention, and, we need to do it. It's important. I don't think it should cost us any more. I mean, if we're offering a certain number of classes to our students, it's not like we're
Yeah.
adding something in. I mean, we might be adding something in, but it would take the place of something
It's
else.
just logistically, it could end up being more expensive.
Now, if there's no interest, then so be it. But we need to gauge that interest and make sure we are, meeting that need if we can. I mean,
But it wouldn't be, I agree with you, Ms. Healy. I don't think it'd be a significant increase in expense if we could find the people. That's the issue.
The only thing I want to say about that is I do agree with the parity issue, and people drive the parity, but right now that would mean that all the middle schools would have, let's just say, Spanish and Latin, and that's it.
it's not necessarily Latin, it's Latin, French, or German.
Well, then, no, right, and then I guess we just have to figure out, so now we'd go back to having, if all of them had 4 offered there.
Well, that's not
Well, I don't know, so that's the trick you get into when you say you have to have parity. Now, when you have to have parity, you have to have parity, and then that means, you take, here's your Latin teacher, and you can project it because you've trained this person, you've certified this person, but it's not going to work. So I mean, it is, but it's, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
They'll have Latin in that, and they'd all have parity, but
I'm not saying they have to say the one, but they have to have that opportunity. I think we need to offer it. We can't say we're going to have parity if we're not going to make the effort and put the resources into it.
No, I'm not
You know,
disagreeing.
because your child goes to one school and my child would go to another, I would think that they should both have an equal opportunity to take a language. I would, of course, encourage Spanish because I majored in Spanish, but, you know, I also took French and Latin. So, you know, I think it's important. I mean, we made a commitment. Did we not, Dr. Benson?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think we've brought
Sorry.
the issue forward, and we'll hear more, and I'm sorry.
Well,
Go ahead, Dr.
Madam Chair, and I appreciate Ms. Healy inserting the shall, okay? We're going to do the Yoda thing. There is no try, okay? What we're going after is Spanish and something else, so that there's some opportunity. We can't say for sure what it's going to be. Some of it's about kid interest, some of it's about endorsement. But we're also working with the high schools to ensure that we have semester language opportunities at the high school level, so that young people that want to get 5 credits in that capstone AP course in a language will be able to do that. So that's the other part of it that has to go along.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Let's move on to item 8.02, approve the award of a professional services contract to Grimm and Parker regarding the rebuild for Moncure Elementary School. I believe that will be Mr. Haran, I assume. Mr. Haran, I assume? Due to the late hour, do you all want Mr. Haran to brief us, or would you rather jump in with questions?
I just have a question. I think we've.
Questions, good.
Yeah. We talked a little bit about putting this committee together to kind of go forward. And I'm looking at the list here. The school board member, we've got Dr. Duffy, Dr. Mira, Carrie Neely, yourself, and Pam. But I don't see the
Two principals, I left those off. Both principals from Ferry Farm and Moncure will be on that group.
They will be?
Yes, ma'am.
That's all. Thank you.
If I may, I have a quick question about the 2.16 mil. Is that within the guideline of what we budgeted for architectural design?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thanks.
Ms. Healy?
The summary says is the proposal is a certain percentage of the estimated $25.2 million construction budget. Did you
Should've been.
reduce that price?
It should have been 8.5%.
Well,
I said 0.85.
But well, my issue is, I thought the cost was going to be more like 27 million. But
that's the
if it's 25.2, that's great.
No, ma'am. I think there's a project budget, and then there's a construction budget. And I was referring to the construction budget, which is a sub-piece of the overall budget. The entire budget includes all your soft costs, your FF&E, your design dollars, so that percentage is relative to the construction. And the reason I mentioned that is because there's an industry, there's a kind of an industry standard range, and I wanted just to make that available to you, that when you hire design services for a project, it can range anywhere from 7 to 10% in the design cost for that. And so that's why I reference on the construction cost. But there's other pieces to the total project budget that equate to the overall price, which is in the CIP.
Okay, so rather than the 0.85%, it's actually 8.5.
Yes,
That's a
ma'am.
very important
It is extremely
period
important,
to
and
misplace.
I apologize for that. You know, when you do the math, it's 0.85, but you don't put a
But you
percent.
change
When the
it to
percent,
percent.
yes, ma'am. So I apologize.
Go ahead.
Just a point. And so, you know, a lot of my comments earlier about, you know, Hess Construction and about Grimm and Parker Construction, I just want to make sure that, you know, we as a staff and we as a board are happy with the products that they've been giving us. And if we were not happy with the products that they've been giving us, then we don't give them more money. We don't give them more business. So You know, if there are no, you know, architectural design flaws with Stafford High School build, and you feel that they've been taken care of, all that kind of stuff, then, you know, of course, you relay it to us and the superintendent, and, you know, that makes us feel good. You know, that makes us give the thumbs up as the engineer. But if not, then we need to know if there are architectural mess-ups on the original building that, you know, they're not taken care of. And of course, I don't want to give them more money. So I'll leave that up to you to feed us, you know, hey, these guys are great, you know, despite what the committee says. I mean, from the engineer and the superintendent, we're happy with, we see what's going on in the school. Everything's in place like it's supposed to be, but we have some issues with our architect's good, but this one's may need some help. Or so I would expect that to come up to us before before at least I give a vote for, hey, I'll go back with Grimm and Parker. You know, that's my concern. Those are my concerns.
Just a quick follow-up question. Grimm and Parker, did they do the architectural work on the elementary school renovations?
No, ma'am. They designed Colonial Forge, Mountain View, and Stafford High School. Those are the 3 projects that we've completed since I've been here, and is in their resume for Stafford County Public Schools.
Okay, so they've not done any of the expansions or
No, ma'am.
renovations?
No,
Okay,
ma'am.
thanks.
Just a closeout comment on that, as mentioned by Mr. Hirons, there will be some meetings regarding the CIP which may impact that, which the FAB would bring any comments or recommendations regarding that by, hopefully before we would get to the meeting on the 26th. Any further questions? All right, let's move on to 8.03, approve a landscaping buffer agreement and easement between Stafford County Public Schools and Tricord related to the Liberty Knolls West adjacent to Winding Creek Elementary School. Any questions? Let's start there. Ms. Egan?
I don't have a question, but I have a statement. This looks eerily familiar to, what is that, Courthouse Manor?
Yes, ma'am.
It's almost,
Well, the Courthouse Manor was a sewer easement to connect to sewer. This is a landscaping buffer on the perimeter of the common property line between Winding Creek and Liberty Knolls West.
Okay.
Representatives from the developer are here tonight. If you have any questions, they'll be happy to answer them associated with it. But during the approval process for that development, we worked with the developer and the county to ensure there's pedestrian access, very similar to Stafford L.
Okay.
That's not on Courthouse Road. Now, there will be a sidewalk as part of the road widening on Courthouse Road that has pedestrian access along Courthouse Road. But we found, with working with Conway back a few years back, that making pedestrian access on a very busy road such as Primer House, that it wasn't real conducive to small children walking to school, and if there were internal pedestrian accesses through the neighborhood, that it was easier and safer and more conducive for the families to have their children walk to school. So the intent was to provide that pedestrian access internal to the development, and so there's actually internal connectivity between Liberty Knolls, which is under construction right now,
Right.
Liberty Knolls West, and Winding Creek. So there will be potential for the school board, if they desire, to create a walking zone for that entire development, not just Liberty Knolls West. And the children would not have to walk on Courthouse Road, but they would walk internal to the development onto the school property. And so that was worked with the county staff and the developer during the approval process, separate from this particular item. They approached us afterwards, and in lieu of constructing a screening fence, which is required by the county between the properties, they are pursuing a buffer. We looked at the land, so obviously it's putting an easement on a certain amount of square footage on school property along two common property lines. That property is relatively unbuildable. In parts of it, it's very steep. In other parts, it's along the property line, and I don't anticipate staff, when I consulted with the school staff as well as other members of staff, we don't anticipate ever needing that particular piece of property as it runs along the common border for any future construction. And if we did at some point in the future, we would have some type of setback anyways off of the property line that would prevent us, but not as much as the buffer requirement.
Okay.
So they volunteered. Of course, they knew what happened at Stafford L, and so that particular number was floating around, and so that's where it is. Now, that's certainly an offer. If the school board would like to discuss that offer, they're obviously more than welcome.
It's like a nice gift for the PTO. So.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
But there is value to that easement. So,
Ms. Kidby. Real quick, so rather than putting what they originally agreed to, which was a wall or a fence of some kind, what they want to do is they want to take our property and they want to put trees on it, or we're going to put trees on it. Somebody's going to put trees and bushes and that
we
kind
wouldn't.
of stuff.
If trees are required, it would be the developer, but there are some trees already there.
Okay.
And so.
Okay. Who would maintain all of this?
The trees?
Yeah.
Well, it would be, good question. We
Yeah.
don't do a whole lot of tree maintenance other than cutting them down if they fall.
Well, if you're going to have it up against,
but,
Ms.
but-
Healy had some, I'm just, she
But
and I
it certainly could be
bounced this
the
off. Go ahead,
developer's
Ms. Healy.
responsibility.
That's not what the agreement says. The agreement says that the developer or the homeowners association asked us to cut dead limbs or something, they would reimburse us for that, but there's nothing in here about routine maintenance, or if they didn't ask us to cut a dead limb, which of course there would be some liability there, you know, if we allowed it to stay. So I do have some questions and concerns about addressing maintenance if we do permit this buffer easement on our property, about liability, potential indemnification, if there are any claims that come up with respect to us, and also address the compensation issue. You know, what is it worth? I don't know. I don't know what it would have cost to put the original screening fence up, and why that's. I don't need these answers because it's really late tonight. But why we're not doing something on the adjacent property? Why it has to come over to our property at all? So there are questions that I have, but my primary concern is the maintenance, because if we are to allow this, we should not accept any responsibility now or in the future for maintaining, you know, the trees on this property. I mean, it's very expensive to replace trees, and sometimes there are natural disasters, and trees can come down. I mean, you have a hurricane or tornadoes or whatever, and you know, we should not be responsible for any cost if we are in effect granting an easement that we have no obligation to do. And as I understand you talking about the walking zones, there was no discussion or agreement that we would grant an easement at that time when the walking zones came in.
That's correct. Yes,
okay.
ma'am.
So this is purely voluntary on our
Absolutely.
part.
Yes,
so we
ma'am.
don't want to get in a position where it's, you know, putting us at risk. Also, I noticed our attorneys are going to be reviewing this document or have reviewed it. There's no provision in here to reimburse us for attorney fees. We all know how much we pay attorneys.
Yes, ma'am, but that's a standard practice that we require the developers to pay the fee for
Well,
us.
that's not in here. So, you know, if it's not in writing, it's not a requirement from a legal standpoint. So I do have some concerns, and I think this is important. I mean, I appreciate the offer to you know, make a gift to our PTO, and certainly, you know, I think that would be a good thing, but I don't want to take it at the risk of putting the school system, you know, in a potential position where it's going to cost us, you know, money or exposure to liability in the future.
I had a little question with security too, and I know the walking path you talked about, clearing that around that, you know, putting smaller shrubs in there, putting grass in there so that there's not trees right up against a walking path, and it's going to be more than 35 feet because it's going diagonal across. Probably about 55 feet of that walking path would be going through what could be considered a tree or a woodsy area, which is, in my mind, dangerous. And you addressed that. I saw that you addressed that. I appreciate that. But then again, we're talking about maintenance. That if there's grass and shrubs in there, that grass got to get mowed. Do we do that?
I think as part of that, again, it's separate, but as part of the agreement, anything on school property, we're maintain.
We would
ma'am.
need to maintain all of that.
Yeah, anything on the
That's something to
on
think
the
about.
developer's
I think
property, they're
Ms.
going to
Healy
maintain
has
it.
a good point. And also, how far back would that grassy area go? I'm very concerned with very little people having to walk through a woodsy area. That's potentially troublesome to me.
Well, again, it's just pedestrian access. If the school board chooses to make that a walking zone, and the transportation community will bring that forward if they choose.
Wasn't that the main purpose, so the kids could?
Well, it allows pedestrian access for the community to the school site. Again, if the school board chooses not to make that a non-transportation zone, that's obviously your purview, and Mr. Sudduth will bring that forward if, in fact, he wants to do that.
Good point.
But it allows it now. By establishing that, we don't have to worry about finding a connectivity, a pedestrian connectivity in 4 years if we ever want to do that in the
But the fence was
future.
going to allow that too, right?
I'm sorry?
If they'd put up that barrier, that
there wouldn't be a
that was
fence
going to
there.
allow it as well, right?
No, I'm not sure your question.
Okay.
The fence
there's
is
two
a
different things here.
requirement
One is
for
the path-
screening, I guess, from the development that
whatever
the
it was.
county
But one is the
requires
pathway
it.
going through.
Yes.
And the other is the buffer.
Okay, you got to remember the pathway was already approved as part of the
Yeah.
project,
So the
not part
pathway's
of this
going to go
effort.
through
That's
regardless
correct.
of what kind of
That's
buffer we
correct.
have.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am, that's correct.
Okay.
But the issue is whether the buffer's on our property or the adjacent property.
Yeah.
So if the buffer's not on our property, then we can do whatever we want with it. If we grant this easement, then we will not have the flexibility to take that down at some point in the future. It will have to stay
Take what
treed,
down?
the trees
Yeah.
that are in the buffer. I mean,
That's right.
if the easement is for
That's
the
right. It's a
purpose
landscaping
of,
buffer.
a landscape buffer, we cannot choose to say, well, we don't want to have this woodsy area, we'll just take it down. We can't, ever, once we grant it.
Mr. McCosker, did you have
I just say,
I thought I saw you
did
waving.
this go to the planning commission, this issue?
I believe the rezoning.
Rezoning commission.
Went through the planning, it got
Planning.
approved by the Board of Supervisors, yes, sir.
Could we, Madam Chair, can we just get the minutes from the planning and the Board of Supervisors on this? I understand that there may be some,
What I
yeah, I don't know what they agreed to, and
But again, that is what was approved by the Board of Supervisors, totally different from this particular item, but we
yeah,
can
but it's
certainly
good to
provide
have.
that. Certainly.
There's, during the minutes, there's also pros and cons discussed, so.
Yes.
What I seem to be hearing from the board is, going forward, we certainly need to get any of the comments that our attorney has on these. Maintenance, liability, indemnification seem to be issues. There even seems to be, I don't want to say a questioning, but a wonder about payments possibly to PTOs in lieu of Stafford County Public Schools. Is the will of the board at this point to have a small group look at this issue, to bring it back? What's the will of the board? I'd like to give some guidance to staff of where we want to go.
I mean, I would like to see the Board of Supervisors and the minutes from the Planning Commission.
We can do that very easily.
That's,
Yes,
you
sir.
probably already have it, but.
With respect to this
Yes,
particular issue?
yes.
Just the
Yeah,
screening?
those specific issues, yeah.
Well, okay, so let's make sure we understand it. The thing that the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors approved with the rezoning for the development. Now, if you want the information on what the county site plan review is requiring of the screening, we can provide that too, but that's separate. That's separate. So,
Was this not a proffer?
the pedestrian pathway was.
Oh, so the
but not-
screening isn't a proffer then?
It is a requirement by the
Yeah.
county to put
Oh.
the screening in, and in lieu of the fence.
Developer, I guess,
Yes.
had some certain things offered, and this may not.
Well,
have been-
in lieu of the fence,
Right.
they're proposing, or would like to have this buffer.
Right.
And so if the school board chooses not to allow the buffer, then they'll put up a fence. And I don't know specifically what type of fence it will be, but it will be some type of privacy fence.
Right.
It still seems right now we're in information gathering. Is there any desire of a different path forward except to await additional information? Any small, okay?
And a quick follow-on, is there a time-sensitive
Right,
issue at
that
all?
would be the next one.
won't speak for the developer, I don't know that. If the developer wants it.
What's the date? Go ahead.
What's the uncheckbook?
What's the date?
What's your date that you need?
Come on up.
That's only 10:30.
Good evening, Madam Chairman, members of the board, Dr. Benson. Thanks for the opportunity to present this tonight. I appreciate you looking into it. This came up as part of the rezoning, and we've been working with the planning staff, Jeff, and the landscape planner, specifically Joe Fiorella, been on site, looked at the existing vegetation out there, and he does concur that what is out there is adequate to meet the screening requirements. And as Scott stated, this is it's an ordinance requirement. Planning staff told us that they don't have the right to waive it, the fence. We just thought it was a little strange to have a fence up against trees. We might have to cut down trees to put in a fence. It just seemed kind of strange to us, but the only way to do it was to satisfy, either had to have 17 and a half feet in a fence or 35 feet total. So we actually had a note on our GDP as well as our approved preliminary plan. I'll read it real fast. I know it's late, but this is kind of how we got to this point. It says, fence is shown to demonstrate ability to provide the buffer yard requirement as required by section 110 of the Design and Construction Standards for Landscaping, Screening, and Buffering. At the time of site plan approval, pursuant to section 142 of the Design and Construction Standards for Landscaping, Screening, and Buffering, the applicant may seek approval of alternative compliance to the buffer yard requirement. Such alternative compliance shall be based on alternative mitigating factors such as, but not limited to, the preservation of significant existing vegetation within the buffer area. At that time, at the sole discretion of the appropriate representative of the county, as defined by the Design and Construction Standards for Landscaping, Screening, and Buffering, the requirement to construct the fence may be waived, and the fence shall not be considered to be required by the GDP or proffers. So it's always been contemplated that we did not do the fence. We needed to satisfy you, we needed to work with you all, get a permanent easement on there, and that's where we are. We see the fence as kind of an attraction for vandalism, for graffiti, maintenance. It ultimately impacts the HOA. It doesn't really hurt us. It's not that expensive in a thing. I can tell you that. Somebody asked about the cost. Maybe $10,000 worth of fence.
So the trees are already there then, is what you're suggesting?
Right. Trees are there. We're going to keep whatever trees we can on our property. But the trees, we have to do a tree survey for all the trees that's on your property. And like I said, we've met on site. The planner likes the veg. They prefer to keep, use existing vegetation than plant new vegetation. Has a better chance of surviving. So that's how we got here. We don't feel like we're trying to get out of anything. We just feel like it makes sense. And the other thing it allows us, we'd have to have a 17.5-foot strip on the backside of some of the lots. Not many, but some of them. And the builders don't really like that. That's a maintenance issue. And I do understand where you're talking about, Ms. Healy, with regard to maintenance. Now, these trees are on your property to begin with. If we have a fence back there, well, they could fall on the fence. At least there's not going to be a fence if we were to put this easement in place. But we can certainly tweak that maintenance. We don't. If there's a tree that's required by our buffer, that would be the responsibility. And it does come down. We have a derecho or something, and that would be the responsibility of us or the HOA to replace that ultimately. That's certainly what we plan on doing. I thought the agreement was written that way, but we can certainly take a look at that.
But you are taking away some of our rights with respect to those trees. I mean, if we have this agreement, then we will never be able to take those trees down. And you're going to actually be adding to these trees. So it's not like there's no change. There is a legal commitment to this board if we grant the easement.
But if you were to do the school board were to do anything on that site, you would also have a buffer. You'd be responsible for a 17.5-foot buffer. I mean, that's.
Well, I mean, this 35 feet, I don't understand why it's all on ours. If you've got trees on yours, why does the whole It's too late to be asking.
But it sounds
questions. Whitehall has to be there.
And part of that is because of topo, quite honestly. I mean, if you guys we're down at the bottom, you all sit above. We wouldn't be here if we were on level ground and you had the chance to do something over there. But for you to develop anything, you'd have to build a retaining wall that would be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars.
It sounds like we need either some guidance here for either interested board members to go see this, just to get
Sure,
a better for us to be able to get a
picture is
get
worth
a better
1,000 words out there. To walk
sense.
and
Absolutely. I would personally like to see if some board members have that interest, so they can bring and brief us working with Mr. Haran. But I will tonight let that go. But I think we do need some guidance. But I don't know if I think the whole board needs to be trooping out there and looking at trees personally. So, thanks for coming in. There'll be some more dialogue, I'm sure.
All right.
Thank you. Moving on to 804 and 805, which regard the superintendent's proposed regulations on student wellness. These both pertain to the Smart Snack guidelines. I kind of grouped them together, but however, they all are about the same thing, so I was combining them.
Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, other school board members, and Dr. Benson. In my mind, I was thinking that I would speak to it that way, and I'll try to be very brief. These two are connected. The revisions to Regulation 3107R have an impact on the fundraising for student organizations. So what we're going to do is just tag team it, and I just want to say that initially that 3107R is just really the result of the state making changes, and Lori Rogan is the school nurse manager is going to provide some of the highlights of those changes first.
Great, thanks. It's Lori.
Sorry for the
Welcome.
late hour. Thank you, Madam Chairman. School Board and Dr. Benson, thanks for hearing this. I serve as the school nurse manager, but also on the School Health Advisory Board, and so some of these changes have been discussed within that committee. Thank you, Ms. Healy, for serving on that. The purpose, the two changes are pretty simple, but may need discussion. For the purpose of food and safety, of food safety and protection of students with food allergies, we're asking that all outside food items offered to classrooms must be commercially prepared, prepackaged, and labeled with the product ingredient list. And that is that's the first change to that. The second part, as Lance mentioned, is in direct from the Virginia Department of Education, the House Bill 2114 in December, allowing 30 exemptions to the Smart Snack guidelines. And we were setting out some guidelines for that, allowing that, just kind of describing what that is. We could say, basically it allows for it. We could say we're going to allow 0. We could say 10, 20, 30. We decided as a board, as a committee, that we would go for the 30, but that we would define those as 30 separate fundraisers, so that, for instance, I hate to bring it up at this late hour, the muffin cart, I said it, is not one fundraiser, but for each day that it would be offered, it would be considered a fundraiser for each day that it was on it. And so that's, we did put some more guidelines in the wellness document that talks a little bit more about what that means. But that is the, to model that for our kids, what, sticking with healthy guidelines, and not because it makes a profit, do we put aside what is good for us, but for sticking with those healthy guidelines, that's where we came as a committee for those recommendations. So I'll take any questions if you have any. Or
Ms. Egan?
Thank you for clarifying that. I have
welcome.
a couple concerns about that, in that doesn't seem like it's the guidelines, the way you guys have interpreted them, complies with what the state law has said. The state law specifically says 30 exemptions, meaning each fundraiser. The muffin cart is solely for fundraising. I know what it is at Brook Point for after prom. After prom keeps all the kids at the school that night. It pays for all of the activities and all the prizes and everything, and it keeps our kids safe They're not out drinking, they're not out at parties, they're somewhere, and all of Muffin Cart pays for that. We've gone from being able to raise $17,000 in a year to cover all that, and it's well-spent money, down to $7,000. So what my folks are asking is, they want the Muffin Cart to be considered one fundraising event, because all that money that's being raised from that is going to that one particular event. So we might be at a little impasse here, because there's going to be a couple of upset PTOs and PTO members, especially at Brook Point, if we deviate from that. And I believe that they're willing to challenge it, because I don't think that the guidelines, the way we're setting them out for them to kind of carry them out, is within the spirit of the legislation that our folks worked with the House Speaker on. So,
Absolutely.
First off, the 30 applies to each school. So it's not like division-wide 30. It's for each school 30. And then the state has not come out. Well, first off, the law does not define what 30 individual exceptions are. It doesn't say what it is. This is an attempt. We spoke with VDOE and tried to get and model around what they said they were starting to draft. And they said, well, we haven't even begun to draft anything. So why don't you guys try to work together with some of your surrounding school divisions, get together and try to put something together that we would then eventually weigh in on. So that is what we are trying to do. We're trying to get out in front of this and try to create some order out of the chaos of having the 30 exemptions, because obviously in the other policy and the agenda following, we have to track. Regardless of how it's defined, which we're taking an attempt at trying to define it, you would still have to track what makes up the 30 before you knew that a particular school has actually met its 30 before it had to stop having any more qualified exceptions based on what's been provided. So we're in advance of any regulations from the state, but the state has said, really, we do want the school divisions to try to help us put together what we believe is workable. And so I believe Chap, who wasn't able to be here because of some back issues, wanted us to say that he is working with some of his cohorts from, I think, Prince William and a few other folks in the Northern Virginia area here to pull this together. So it's not just Chap pulling this together. It's some consensus amongst some of the other.
So it's still open for tweaking and discussing?
Ultimately, anything that we put in play now, which we're trying to just get some liftoff so we can start doing the exceptions, is they've left what the definition is and how to decide whether it should be 0, 10, 20, or 30 exceptions up to each school division. So we're trying to do this based on input from other school divisions as a starting point for the state.
Right, and just to give you a little background, this law was passed specifically by one of my constituents with the assistance of our delegate, who happens to be the Speaker of the House. So this
I know that.
This is very organic for us, and
I think when the state weighs in with regulations, we will have to conform with, if there are any changes from what we've developed initially, if they take a stance that, the definition needs to change, we will probably then at that point in time have to revise whatever it is we initially adopt. But right now, there is nothing to use as guidance other than what it is that we've developed based on input from the state.
So,
How to go about this.
Why don't we take it to the boundaries of the parameters? Why are we starting off saying, well, we know this is probably what they're going to end up doing. Let's limit ourselves.
Well, we're trying.
Let's use the whole law.
Well, we're trying
that we worked on. Let's use that whole law and go to the maximum. I mean, I have a feeling that's what this board's going to support.
Well, we are. We're saying 30 is the maximum.
But one event is
the cookie carts, which occurs multiple times a year. I don't know the exact number, but that's one of the events.
Yeah.
'Cause it
Let's
feeds in-
define our
that's a
events
good-
as broadly as we can.
I can't believe you came up with that.
He likes to have things to count.
We were merely attempting to
I get
come up
it.
with
I get
the
it.
first
I get
start.
it. And you know, yeah, and your job is to, you know, protect the board and this division as much
Because
as
it all
possible.
falls under the national
But-
nutritional guidelines that they're
Absolutely,
trying to
but you
get
know
us
what?
to, for the safety, for the health of the kids.
Right,
So
yeah, but you
it's
know
a
what,
double-edged
our-
sword.
our General
Raising
Assembly-
money versus the health of the children.
Our General Assembly has given us the tool to define it, and if the state isn't going to define it for us, let us define it, and let's be as broad as possible.
We're not saying that
If I could
that
just
shouldn't be
add-
the case.
Well, and this is one of the challenges when the legislative folks do their thing and then hand it off to DOE, and then they wait for DOE to come out with regulations. And we heard this at the joint legislative session that we had in Spotsy as a frustration from our lawmakers, is that then the DOE does something and they come back and say, well, that's not what we intended, okay? But that's the way we interpreted it, right? So the issue will be this, though, and I just want to make sure that we understand this. If we look at the muffin cart as one of the 30, we'll pretty much be selling whatever kind of food pretty much any day throughout the course of the year. And so if that, I mean,
And raising money.
and if that's the will of the board, that's the will of the board.
But what you're asking, though, I mean, what I hear you saying is that you would put the health and wellness of this obese nation that we have and put fundraising over their wellness. That is what that's what I hear
I
you
think
saying.
that's been the status of the country for a number
So-
of years,
so
and
we
we have an
don't do anything to
overburdened federal
change?
government
So we
that's
still
pushing these
have
rules
Muffin
down
Cart.
on us, threatening our lunch money off of these rules that they're pushing across the nation, which may not be right for Stafford County. I think Stafford County can understand I have trust in our parents that, you know, that they have limits for their kids, and this gives the opportunity for organizations to raise money that are desperately needed funds. When we don't have the funding that we can provide as a county, these organizations are making up what we can't provide for them.
There's one other piece that I just want the board to consider. And again, you know, if it's the will of the board, it's the will of the board, okay? These foods during the course of the day could be competitive with what we offer in our breakfast and lunch programs, even if they're not sold at exactly the same time, okay? And so there is a potential impact on revenue for our school nutrition program. We would need to pay attention to that, okay? Because it is, you know, it funds itself. So we just need to make sure that we're thinking about that as well. So I just want to have all that information out there, and then we'll do the will of the board.
No, it's a good start, and so you brought an information item, and you discussed it, and so we'll discuss it, and we'll get some more information from you, and that's all I have to say, unless you do.
No, that was, actually, my wrap-up was, is there additional specific information that board members have from tonight? I just want to make sure if there was something specific that anybody wanted to request, that made sure we made it. All right, then
Let me just say that the follow-on item, just very briefly, what we're going to do is revise our forms for the tracking purposes, and basically, the policy makes reference to the 30 exception rule. So whatever the definition is, whatever the will of the board is, at least when it comes to the fundraising impact, it will have been addressed.
And Ms. Rogan, thank you for staying so late to bring that, and thank you very much. The last item on our agenda for information is to approve revised bylaws for the Finance and Budget Standing Committee. I believe that I have heard about potentially one edit in paragraph 8 to take out the word require and just to make it to monitor.
Which one is that?
It would be number, yeah. Under responsibilities, 8, it says require and monitor any corrective actions. It was suggested that it should just be monitor, because requirement would be maybe a full board action.
Yeah, okay.
That would be a potential edit. I know it is late. Are there any other discussion about these? These have been vetted. We thought these were brought to the board in, earlier in the year. I'm sorry not to have it right in front of me. But because Ms. Fallon's addition, we did not want to put it on for action, even though it had come to this board as an information item. If there is a will to act on this item tonight, I can entertain that motion, or we can wait for 2 weeks from now. Hearing none, we can.
Let's just wait.
We'll just wait.
I mean,
And
unless you
do
hear
the
otherwise, why
modification.
don't we just put it on the consent agenda,
Agenda.
if that's.
With that, with
okay?
the
Unless there's
requested
some reason you need
modification.
it just before then.
Modified, okay. All right. Announcement of our next meeting is January 26th. Oh, and I'm sure I forgot something, I'm sure. I'm not sure. Oh. I don't know. CIP. Oh, yes, that, oh. Okay. In addition, are those in the revised ones that were attached? Right. Based on the last time that these were reviewed by the board, we did add a CIP report to be reviewed by the FABC. That's the only change since the board members who were sitting here earlier or at the end of last year, that was an additional addition. Thank you very much. Ms. Yearing, I forgot that we had added that. Our next school board meeting will be January 26th. Madam Vice Chair, if you could be moving on to the closed.
You want to announce the work session at 5:30?
Yes, and then there will be a work session at 5:30. There is a FAB joint meeting tomorrow at 4:30, as indicated by Mr. Hirons. Is the only meetings that I'm aware of. So, are you ready?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, 10.01.
Okay, pursuant to Section 2.2-3711A of the Code of Virginia, I move that the Stafford County School Board convene a closed meeting to discuss or consider appointment of personnel and personnel matters pursuant to the personnel exemption at Section 2.2-3711A1 of the Code of Virginia, 1950, as amended.
All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are in closed session.